Hello. It's another day, another stream in fascist America. Welcome to whatever this is, an attempt at providing education, advocacy, and a little common sense in this digital wasteland. My name is Aubri Devashrayee. The president is making genocidal threats against Iran, saying that he will kill an entire civilization. That is a blatant war crime. It's reprehensible, immoral, evil, all of these things. I was going to be talking more about organizing today, but with this recent innovation, I want to cover what has been said, what people are saying about it. Some talking heads get some of their perspectives. Get an update with the UN. They recently voted on a resolution to open the Strait of Hormuz. So there are a number of things happening, but that doesn't mean that I want to cover, but that doesn't mean that it's not important to be out resisting what is happening. After this stream, I'm going to go to a protest. If you are in the US, please go to a protest. It is very concerning. Like, we can call representatives, they don't always respond to us, but they need to feel very afraid of us right now. Because I'm very concerned that this is a nuclear threat, something I've been talking about for a while. Many people have been talking about for a while that Trump is capable of this and that he probably will pursue this because he's a narcissist and doesn't care about human life. Saying that he's trying to liberate Iran while at the same time threatening their lives, calling them animals, referring to them in dehumanizing terms, using Orientalism to justify his unwarranted aggression, and then at the same time being like, they push gays off of buildings, they hate gays, the women are not free, there are no rights there. That's like, what do you think we're doing here? Why are you trying to take away the right for women to vote? Why are you making it so that your Supreme Court did away with this ban on conversion therapy? That is torture to queer people, to trans people. It is astounding, the amount of hypocrisy. And it's not surprising because it's been happening, but this is a new escalation that we have to be talking about. I want to talk about ways that we can show out and resist this. One of these things being protesting, making sure that we have demands with our protest. If you find a protest that is happening near you, make sure you check to see if they have demands. Make sure you contact any sort of organizers to request that there be demands. Because I'm guessing the overarching demand will be like, end the war, don't nuke Iran, don't do what you are threatening to do. But it also needs to apply to these other forms of aggression that are happening abroad, like with Cuba, like with Venezuela, like in Gaza. So here we are. And the thing that is wild is that there are so many Americans that are just like, oh, don't take him seriously. I think more than ever, there are people that are starting to take him seriously, even some Trump supporters. Like, someone on a recent stream said that there are people on 4chan that are turning against Trump. That's new. So he's hemorrhaging support. And I saw a video that was recommended to me just right before I started streaming that's talking about him feuding with Fox News, so I'm intrigued by that. I want to cover that. I want to cover some of the harm that's already been done to the economy, but I also want to get perspective from Iranian people, have them actually speak for themselves and get their perspective, so I want to cover that as well. And then we'll get into the writings of Voltaire and have that lead into the reading of the Scarlet Pimpernel. The conditions that are occurring in the US right now are startlingly similar to the conditions of the French Revolution, with these wealth disparities, with the suppression of the masses, the accumulation of enormous wealth, and the government just being flippant and with all of this money not regarding the dignity and humanity of the people that they should be caring about. So I think it's pertinent to be talking about the French Revolution and why people were so upset. Again, talk about some of the similarities to what we're experiencing here. But more than ever, we need a national strike. If you have not signed up for or submitted a strike card at General Strike US, their website, please do if you are in the US, because we need a concerted, clear effort to halt the economy, to halt the industrial war complex, to stop all of this illegal, immoral aggression. It has to stop. Okay. So I start with, I know that's like a very sobering, serious intro, but that's where we're at in the world. So I start with a more lighthearted video, and this is a political one, just because I don't want to be like disrespectful of the moment. This is a video by Butterfaces, the account. These two comedians who are hilarious. I've shown some of their stuff before. And this is Kristi Noem and her husband make a joint statement. And I'm very excited to see what this is about.
Mexicans made him do it. Please pray for our family. Mexicans made him do it. Please pray for our family right now. This is the worst thing that's happening to anyone in the world at this current moment. You look like Jamie Lee Curtis, my God. My husband kept telling me to get Botox and filler and children's urine injected into my face. I thought it was because he thought it was making me look beautiful. And now I'm starting to realize maybe he was just trying to live vicorously through me. You don't sit your butt down in that chair. But, oh, God forbid, a Republican woman's husband wants to wear big, fake, inflatable boobs and bounce up and down. Oh, then all you gays have a problem with it. I pray to God every day that he will give you cancer. He went to one drag queen reading in the library, and now he's doing this.
Oh, no.
This is what the gays are trying to do to the children.
Drag queens made me do it.
I swear to God, if you open your mouth one more time, I'm going to make you regret that God ever gave humans the gift of speech, you troglodyte! I need to go shoot a dog to calm down. Mexicans made him do it. Please pray for our family right now. This is the worst thing that's happening.
Just the like bouncing throughout the entire thing. It's a good chuckle. Look at this nose. That is so obscene. Okay. Getting into the bullshit. This is from ABC Chicago. I think they were talking about things in more serious of tones. So let's give this a watch.
Terrell, Tanya, an alarming new threat from the president tonight, who writes, "A whole civilization will die tonight," as the clock ticks to his deadline to make a deal.
Overnight, the U.S. launching strikes on military targets on Karg Island, Iran's main oil export terminal. And with hours to go until his deadline for Iran to make a deal, President Trump with an alarming new threat, writing, "A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again." He adds, "I don't want that to happen, but it probably will." The president suggesting
don't want
an
that to
off-ramp was still
happen.
possible,
Sure you
writing,
don't.
quote, "Maybe something revolutionarily wonderful can happen. Who knows? We will find out tonight." The president set an 8 o'clock Eastern deadline tonight for Iran to make a deal and reopen the Strait of Hormuz, warning yesterday that the entire country could be taken out if they do not.
Where every power plant in Iran will be out of business, burning, exploding, and never to be used again.
But some experts warn strikes on infrastructure could be a violation of international law.
We strike civilian targets, power generation plants. They, of course, support hospitals. They support desalinization plants. These are things that are necessary for life in any society.
The president yesterday brushing aside those concerns.
Are you concerned that your threat to bomb power plants and bridges amount to
No, not at all.
crime?
No, I'm not.
An Iranian spokesperson slamming the president's threats, calling them the rude rhetoric, arrogance, and baseless threats of the delusional U.S. president.
We're not going to strike energy and infrastructure targets until the Iranians either make a proposal that we can get behind or don't make a proposal.
Iran continuing its retaliatory strikes, firing on both.
Yeah, JD Vance is in Hungary. He's stumping for Viktor Orban because they're worried about him losing power with his own fascist plans and regime. This is concerning that the Vice President of the United States is helping with a political campaign of Viktor Orban. I mean, JD Vance is so uncharismatic and deeply unlikable that honestly, it may have the opposite effect of worsening Viktor Orban's chances, honestly. So it's just so deplorable that he's even over there. It is essentially providing legitimacy to Viktor Orban. It really, I don't even have words. Today is such a shit show. Jesus Christ.
Israel and on a petrochemical plant in Saudi Arabia.
And here at home, some Republicans are expressing concerns with the president's threats. Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson says the U.S. is not at war with the Iranian people, and he hopes the president is using these threats as bluster. Reporting from the White House, Karen Travers, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
It's disqualifying. To be speaking in this manner is utterly disqualifying to be president of the United States. He has been doing disqualifying things this entire time. In his first term, in this term. That's why we need a national strike, because even saying Ron Johnson is like, I hope it's just bluster, he's not going to be doing anything meaningful to stop this. That is what is so concerning. Okay, so this is from the Associated Press. The UN resolution, Russia and China are vetoing the resolution, which honestly, I agree with. They should not open the Strait of Hormuz because this is one of the few ways that Iran has leverage. So,
will those in favor of the draft resolution contained in document S/2026/
oh God. Just a sec.
Will those in favor of the draft resolution contained in document S/2026/
Were they the only ones to veto? Were there anyone? Was there anyone else that did? I'm gonna look this up.
Those against?
Okay, just saw China.
Abstentions?
Who's abstaining? Cowards. Cowards.
The result of the voting is as follows. 11 votes in favor, 2 votes against, 2 abstentions. The draft resolution has not been adopted owing to the negative vote of a permanent member of the Council.
The fact that we have so many people that are for it without regard to what is going on with the violence in Iran is wild. Just a lot of self-interest. People are worried about oil for themselves, and especially when it comes to the European powers, they have been just so disappointing with their response to what's going on. That there was a very different response when there were these threats against Greenland. But when it's happening to brown people in the Middle East, when it's happening to people who are Muslim, they don't care. I guess the people who abstained, it at least is not in favor of opening. Okay, so this is a creator I've been watching more lately, Fatima Asadi. Why Iran Doesn't Collapse, A Story of Resistance, Women in Power. So I wanted to give this a watch. Hear what they had to say. Oh wait, I actually wanted to get the headlines before that, just because this is a little bit shorter and I think will lend a little bit of context to that one. Never mind. Let's watch these headlines and then get into that.
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. President Trump's renewed his threats to attack Iran's civilian infrastructure, warning every power plant and every major bridge in Iran could be destroyed if the Strait of Hormuz is not fully reopened by 8 p.m. Eastern time this evening. Speaking to reporters Monday at the White House, he shrugged off questions about war crimes and threats against civilians, saying, quote, very little is off limits. Trump also claimed Iran, a country of more than 90 million people, could be, quote, taken out in one night.
Where every bridge in Iran will be decimated by 12 o'clock tomorrow night, where every power plant in Iran will be out of business, burning, exploding, and never to be used again. I mean, complete demolition by 12 o'clock. And it'll happen over a period of 4 hours if we wanted to.
Republican lawmakers defended the president's threats while Democrats condemned them as unhinged. Arizona Congresswoman Yasmin Ansari, who is Iranian-American, called on Vice President J.D. Vance and Trump's cabinet to invoke the 25th Amendment to remove Trump from office. She also announced she'll introduce articles of impeachment against Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, citing as, quote, reckless endangerment of U.S. service members and repeated war crimes, unquote. In Iran, state media reports U.S.-Israeli attacks targeted at least a dozen cities on Monday, killing at least 34 people, including 6 children. Among the targets was the Sharif University of Technology in Tehran, which was badly damaged by airstrikes. The university has been called the MIT of the Middle East. It's among at least 30 universities struck by the U.S. and Israel, according to Iran's Ministry of Science and Technology. Meanwhile, Iran missiles and drones continue to target U.S. military bases and other infrastructure in the Gulf countries. In Kuwait, CBS News reports 15 U.S. service members were injured in an Iranian drone attack on the Ali al-Salam airbase. In Saudi Arabia, officials temporarily closed the King Fahd Causeway, the only bridge to the island nation of Bahrain. It's one of 8 major bridges Iran's threatened to blow up if the U.S.-Israeli coalition escalates its attacks. Bahrain is home to the headquarters of the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet, but the Pentagon has largely evacuated its naval base there after it came under persistent fire from Iran. On Monday, Iranian officials rejected a U.S. proposal for a 45-day ceasefire, saying it'll only negotiate a permanent end to the war with guarantees it won't be attacked again. The United Nations says the number of people displaced in Lebanon has grown to over 1.1 million as Israeli forces continue to invade Lebanon's south while bombing Beirut and other sites across the country. Hezbollah responded with...
They've also been occupying, this is the latest statistic that I heard, 14% of Lebanon. Like, that also needs to be discussed.
Waves of rocket attacks on northern Israel. Lebanon's health ministry reports one Israeli airstrike on Monday targeted a civilian car in southern Lebanon, killing 4 civilians, while another strike on the town of Haris killed 2 civilians. This follows a bloody Easter Sunday that saw Israel kill more than 36 people, among them the Lebanese politician Pierre Mouawad, his wife, and another woman killed in an Israeli attack on an apartment building east of Beirut. Mouawad was an official in the Lebanese forces, a longtime adversary of Hezbollah. In the Gaza Strip, Israeli strikes killed at least 10 people and wounded several others Monday at a school housing displaced Palestinians in the Maghazi refugee camp. In a separate attack, an Israeli strike on Gaza City killed a Palestinian man on a bicycle and wounded a child who just collected food from a soup kitchen. This is an eyewitness to the drone strike.
A youth on a bicycle, a young man in his 20s. He was on the bike and 2 drones fell. God protected the people that were getting food. Innocent people. They are all innocent. The man on the bike is a civilian youth. We were surprised. 2 drones tore him apart.
Meanwhile, the World Health Organization said Monday it's suspending evacuations from Gaza after a WHO contract worker was killed. The Palestinian Health Ministry condemned the attack, saying Israel continues to directly target health and humanitarian workers. The ministry reports 1,700 healthcare workers have been killed in Gaza since October 2023. The head of the International Monetary Fund's warning the U.S.-Israeli war in Iran will lead to higher inflation while slowing the global economy, even if the conflict ends swiftly. IMF Director Kristalina Georgieva said Monday the war has already led to the worst-ever disruption in global energy supplies and that poor, vulnerable nations with no energy reserves will be hit the hardest.
Had we not have this war, we would have seen one small upgrade of our growth projections. Instead, all roads now lead to higher prices and slower growth.
Meanwhile, DropSite News reports the U.S.-Israeli war in Iran has prompted Gulf nation sovereign wealth funds to undertake a sweeping review of U.S. investments. Those include funding for U.S. artificial intelligence data centers and the merger of U.S. media giants Paramount and Skydance and Warner Brothers Discovery. More than a fifth of pledges for the blockbuster $111 billion deal come from wealth funds connected to Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates.
His sister came out and said that he sexually abused her when they were younger. Why is it that all of these billionaires are so predatory? I mean, it makes sense, I guess, where they're predatory and exploitative when it comes to their business practices. So, of course, they're doing these things in their personal lives. Or they are predatory before they become billionaires. It's how they become billionaires. So, I hope that she sues and is able to get compensation, but it just continues the evil that these people have committed and continue to commit.
DropSite News reports the deal remains likely to go through, but that could change if the war drags on for weeks or months and if Gulf oil and gas assets come under even greater attack. In Turkey, one attacker was killed and 2 others are wounded in a gunfight with police near a building housing the Israeli consulate in Istanbul. Turkey's interior minister said the 3 attackers had links to an organization that, quote, exploits religion, unquote. There had been no Israeli diplomatic staff at the consulate for 2.5 years since October 2023. The Trump administration's terminated civil rights settlements that previous administrations reached with 5 school districts and a college to protect transgender students, a move unprecedented in U.S. history. The Delaware Valley School District, which reached its original settlement with the Obama administration in 2015, received notice of the termination in February and has since voted to roll back its anti-discrimination protections for transgender students. Shwali Patel, Senior Director of Education Justice at the National Women's Law Center, said, quote, "There's absolutely no basis for what the Department of Education is doing, and it's unimaginably cruel," unquote.
It's cruel, harmful,
in Iowa,
it's evil.
The state can now restrict teaching.
Again, what they're doing is evil. It has no respect for human life and dignity. It is utterly exhausting being a trans person in the US, but especially growing up as a trans kid. These poor kids already have so much stacked against them. These kids already face so many barriers when it comes to getting health care, when it comes to being addressed in the ways that they want, in getting the clothes that they need, in being offered dignity in school settings and extracurriculars. This is genocidal. There was an international body that recently came out and said that the US is in the midst of a genocide against trans people. They were saying this was happening even before the Trump administration because of all of these anti-trans laws, the rise in violence and hate crimes and killings, murders of people. And now we are seeing a full-blown attack on every single front. It's disgusting. These are kids. The way that this administration targets children is unconscionable. It's like there aren't even words. There aren't even words to describe the lengths that they are willing to go to be cruel and make people suffer. Just no regard for humanity. No regard for human beings.
From discussing LGBTQ plus topics with students in kindergarten through 6th grade, and can ban certain books in school libraries and classrooms after the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals vacated a lower court's temporary block on a 2023 state law. A pair of Democratic lawmakers is calling President Trump to immediately end his oil blockade of Cuba. Democratic Congress members Pramila Jayapal of Washington and Jonathan Jackson of Illinois concluded a 5-day congressional delegation to Cuba, during which they met with Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel,
I'm glad that they went to Cuba,
Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez, and members of the Cuban
the
parliament.
cruelty.
Congress members Jayapal and Jackson said they witnessed premature babies and incubators at risk because their ventilators could not function without electricity, and reported that food production on the island has dropped to just 10% of the population's needs. In January, President Trump signed an executive order threatening tariffs on any countries supplying oil to Cuba, intensifying the 6-decade-old U.S. embargo. But Trump made an exception for a Russian ship that reached the island last week carrying over 700,000 barrels of crude oil. It was the first petroleum shipment in 3 months to dock in Cuba. This is Congressmember Jayapal.
The moment is here for us to have a...
Interesting. Russia never seems to have any sort of consequences from the U.S. Could it be that the administration is on the side of Russia? Yes, I think so. A Russian asset.
Real negotiation between our two countries and to reverse failed U.S. policy of decades, a Cold War era remnant that no longer serves the American people or the Cuban people.
Vice President J.D. Vance is in Budapest today for meetings with Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban days before Hungary's April 12th parliamentary elections. It's the toughest electoral test Orban and his far-right ultra-nationalist movement have faced in years. Orban's party is trailing in polls behind the center-right opposition party. Secretary of State Marco Rubio also traveled to Budapest in February, where he told Orban, quote, President Trump's deeply committed to your success because your success is our
Fascists
success,
sticking together.
unquote. Over the weekend, Orban convened an emergency National Defense Council meeting after Serbian authorities said 2 backpacks containing U.S.-made plastic explosives were discovered near the Turk Stream pipeline in northern Serbia, which transports Russian gas to Hungary. Opposition leaders accused Orban of staging a false flag operation with Serbian and Russian assistance aimed at influencing the outcome of next week's election.
Yeah, of course.
And the U.S. Supreme Court...
Russia, back at it with their election interference. We really need an investigation into the interference that happened with this last election. Elon Musk dumped a ton of money into it. There were so many ads, and we need to look at the interference of foreign countries as well. AIPAC, Israel, Russia, all of these actors with nukes who are determined to create these ethno-states with religious nationalism. I guess Russia isn't religious nationalist, at least that I know of. But this is a pattern. This is what they do because they don't have popular support, so they have to rig things. They have to resort to cruelty and violence in order to maintain power. This is late-stage capitalism. This is imperialist aggression, and it has to end.
Has cleared the way for the Justice Department to dismiss the criminal case against Steve Bannon, President Trump's former chief White House strategist. The justices set aside a lower court decision that held Bannon's conviction on 2 counts of contempt of Congress, paving the way for the district court to dismiss the case. Bannon was convicted after he refused to comply with a subpoena from the House Select Committee investigating the January 6 attack on the Capitol, which required him to provide documents and testimony. He served 4 months in prison. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman in New York, joined by Democracy Now!'s Juan Gonzalez in Chicago. Hi, Juan.
Hi, Amy, and welcome to all of our listeners and viewers across the country and around the world.
Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications.
Falling empire shit. Okay. Now, let's see what these lovely women have to say.
Welcome to the second episode of our interviews with the specialists in the playlist of podcasts. In this session, we are going to have a perfect conversation with Atiye, who has studied economics at the University of Tehran. Now she is living in Indonesia. Hello, Atiye. How are you?
Hi. Thank you for having me here, and I hope we'll have a great conversation.
Inshallah, I hope so. Actually, as you know, more than 35 days have passed since the U.S. and Israel regime invaded Iran's territorial integrity and killing the civilian population and bombing, still continuing the bombing schools and the hospitals and the civilian areas and many targets like that. And Iran is still alone resisting the most modern army in the world. And the most modern air forces in the world. I mean, about the U.S. Army and also Israeli regime. And many of you have asked this question, and you asked me, okay, despite all things, this is very interesting that how Iranian people have been successful to resisting under the heavy airstrikes hour by hour, day by day.
It's super impressive.
How is that possible? And as you know, in the previous video, we discussed that
because they've had to be prepared for this shit.
Some backgrounds that are not actually about the military forces and the military statistics. All of them are related to the history, value, and the cultural mindset of the Iranian people. So that is why in this session with Atiye, we are going to get more deep about these topics, about the history of Iran, about the culture of Iran, about the woman, and something like that actually all of them have helped Iran right now and the Iranian people to resist, despite the airstrikes and the heavy bombings. So Atiye, for the first question, I want to ask you, what were the main sources of resilience? The language, the literature, the women, the culture, the history. Could you tell us a number all sources that have helped Iranian people to resist in this war?
Well, you mean the current war or throughout history?
I mean about the current history. Actually, there surely we can see that there is a long history that has helped people to resist in the current war. So could you explain?
Oh no, part of her flag fell down.
As an identity, not as the current state, the land of Persia, if you will, has undergone many attacks, many invasions throughout history. Most brutal and catastrophic of them all would be like the invasion of the Mongols, the Macedonian Alexander, World War I, famine, and the massacre of Iranian people. And we see that there is a pattern through all of that. Like the Mongols, for example, they conquered Iran. They then throughout centuries, they adapt, maybe even decades, they adapted the Iranian culture and they ultimately became Iranians. And Iran is known for dissolving foreign cultures into itself. I see that to highly come from and depend on the fact that Iran is not just a state but a civilization. You see, as you said, the language Farsi, Persian, has a major role to play in the fact that Iran stayed what it has been throughout history.
This is the importance of maintaining language, of maintaining culture, that it is a reflection of larger society and civilization, the human beings that live there. It is a form of autonomy. It is a form of identity and independence. When did this come out? Okay, 2 days ago. This is not about politics. It's about how a society remembers, rebuilds, and continues from everyday life to poetry. What does it mean for a civilization to endure? So this is before the genocidal threat that just came out, but the thumbnail for this said like bomb into the Stone Ages. So this is in that context. So that post, that truth social bullshit that Trump said has already happened, and that's part of the background. Greetings from Poland. You will win. Yep. People who are defending their homeland, they win. Iran helped the Poles in 1942 during World War II, accepting over 115,000 to 120,000 refugees and soldiers. I didn't know that. You are a culture in your own right, an ancient people, the origin of civilization. Whatever changes are needed or not needed are the prerogative of your own people. No other country has the right to tell you who to vote for, what to wear, or how to run your country. My respect to you all from Ireland. Yep. At the end, Persians are the real God's chosen people. Stay safe, always, Fatima. May Allah protect all the Iranians in Iran. Your history, your culture, your poetry, even your faces are so beautiful. Especially, I want you to know that here in Europe, a lot of people share my view. Yeah, that there are a lot of people in the United States that don't want this to happen. But because we have leaders that don't listen to us, and because we are in such a fractured media landscape, because people are so disempowered and disillusioned with politics, they don't feel like they have a voice. Proud to be Iranian. I love that. Yeah, I pray this war ends soon and Iran can be left alone and thrive. Love from India. Love from Greece. Greetings from Italy. Yeah. If people thought that the US was hated before this, which the US is, in all of its imperialist aggression and extraction and domination, it is only growing, and it's not for no reason. The fact that we have a president that is threatening to nuke an entire civilization, that's genocide, that's a war crime, it's opening the floodgates to nuclear warfare, there will be immense backlash worldwide against Americans. That's just the truth of it.
I'm going to discuss Farsi first.
I need to check on something real quick.
We'll get to the other
I'll keep this
factors.
playing, but I'll be right back.
The language has been here since around 3,000 years ago. Farsi is actually the language of not only what we speak in our day-to-day life, but the language of our history and our myths and legends. And that's what gives Iranians and Persians that identity that they are willing to keep no matter what state runs the country, what government runs the country. And for example, like books like Shahnameh, books like Rumi's poems, they're full of Iranian resilience, Iranian resistance. They're full of lessons about how pain grows you and how loss is just a deeper understanding of life, and it gives you growth. So I think people with this background, people with this deep of a literature and language, they kind of learn throughout the centuries and millennia that even if they are invaded, even if whole cities and generations are wiped out, there is still hope for the future, and they will still keep living in this land.
Actually, as I told my audience, that there is an interesting thing. It's not just about Iran, but about lots of Islamic countries, especially like the people of Lebanon, the people of Palestine, and the people of Iraq. That not being afraid of being deaf. Welcoming the. It's not welcoming the death, but we call it the welcoming the martyrs. So it is, a strong item that really helps the people to resistance, because they think, okay,
everything's fine. I also got a necklace. Okay, let's continue.
We don't have anything to lose, so that is why we can sacrifice our life for a great, for a great goal or for a great value. So is the same. What do you think?
Yeah, exactly. Even in pre-Islamic and more so in the post-Islamic era, dying and sacrificing your life for your country has been a great honor for people. And people who do that are often mentioned in myths and legends, and we see a lot of them in Shahnameh, and people who put their country before their lives and fight for their country are shown as heroic. So this kind of amplifies the resilience inside of the current people of Iran.
Okay. My next question is that what makes a society like Iran?
She have her mic in her hijab. I love that.
After
brilliant
bombings and wars and damage after every war during the history. What is exactly that motivation?
I think due to the same pattern we talked about, like Iran is conquered, it's invaded, then the invader needs some kind of administration, some kind of political order, and because Iran is deeply civilized in that area, and it was one of the first, I think even the first empire in the world, and it had a bureaucracy, it had a neat imperial governance, if you will. The invader had to adapt and borrow that bureaucracy in order to run the country. And then because the bureaucracy and the imperial orders and everything was transmitted in Persian, and everything was like communicated in Persian. They had to, I mean, the kings, the foreigners who were ruling Iran, they had to also learn Persian. And then because they learned Persian, they slowly took customs and traditions of the Persians. And then they even like reverted to Islam or Zoroastrianism and became Iranian after a few generations. This is for the history, but I think right now the Iranian resilience comes from the fact that we have seen these days many times throughout history. We've seen this pattern play out in the Mongol invasion, in Alexander's invasion, in the Islamic conquest. We see this pattern, and we are sure that the Iranian identity, the Persian identity, will not go away. So this grows us more confident in the fact that we will not be wiped out, we will not be destroyed. So I will say that for today's war, the memory and the self-awareness of our national identity is one of the most important factors in us resisting the U.S. Invasion and the U.S. Imposed war. Also, I think that the faith of the people, as you said, also both the Islamic faith and the Iranian ancient faith, that it's an honor to die for your country, has a very important role to play here.
Actually, I think there are lots of other factors that have affected this resilience. For example, if a country or if society like the people of Iran, if they care about the resilience, they will be more sensible toward the other cultures and the other countries and the other ideas and other thoughts that can improve that can improve this factor of the Iranian society. For example, if you care about pizza, every time you read about pizza in the sites and you check the new restaurants, you understand me. So that is why we can say that despite that Iranian society and Iranian deep history and culture has been I can say an example. Before the Islamic Revolution of Iran, and many of the people who after the revolution, they were the religious and political leaders.
I'm going to be making bracelets with the flag, the Iranian flag, and I'm going to figure out a way to sell them on YouTube so that it can go towards funds that are supporting people in Iran. Stay tuned for that. I'll be figuring something out.
Of the Islamic Republic of Iran, before the revolution, many of them actually had traveled to the Palestine, and they were inspired by the Palestinian resilience in the West Bank and in Gaza. So that is why, and also lots of the other countries, lots of the people now are affected by the resilience of the people of Palestine. So despite the core identity of the societies, you can keep them, and also you can be affected and improve the thoughts of your identity by searching and discovering and exploring the other cultures that improves your core identity, like resilience. For example, in an area like Middle East, there are lots of resilient people, like Iran, like Lebanon, like Iraq, like West Bank, like Gaza. So we can understand that all of them are motivating each other to keep the resilience. Sorry, to keep the resistance. Is that true? What do you think?
I think, yeah, it could be true. They work in some kind of synergy to give each other hope and keep each other moving. And I can say that without, the current resistant axis is kind of kept alive by all the other members of it. Like if all the other members of the resistance axis didn't help Palestinian resistance, didn't help Lebanon, didn't help Iran in its early stages, they, as a resistance axis, they wouldn't have survived.
Yes, exactly. I mean, the circumstances and the geography and the geopolitics, they are also important when we want to analyze society like Iran and something like that. So my next question is that what exactly has been the role of Iranian women in the maintaining this continuity and resistance during history?
Well,
that is not usually said in media. Lots of people think that the women in Iran are oppressed. They are forced to wear hijab, and I mean the whole problem that they have is just about that. I mean, they never portray the other important things and the other important roles that Iranian women have played during this long history.
Yeah, first of all, according to the interviews and the videos that come out of Iran right now, I can say, and everyone else also can say, that this isn't true anymore. The oppressive picture that they have portrayed of Iran, the propaganda of the West has portrayed of Iran is collapsing little by little, and people are starting to see that hijab and, I don't know, being able to sing is not the main problem of the Iranian women. If anything, I think Western women are the ones being oppressed by being sexualized, by being commodified. But the role of Iranian women in today and past wars, besides literally fighting alongside men, because that's also overlooked in history, besides literally going to battlefields sometimes, the main role that they play is that they keep the family system, the kinship going. And if we look at family as the main unit of the society, they keep that unit intact and they keep it together. And for most of history, it was women who transmitted and transferred culture and beliefs and traditions through education of their children. So if we say that the Persian language is what kept the Persian civilization through invasions and wars, it's mainly women that did it, because they were the ones who passed the language, the Persian customs, the Persian traditions through generations. And also, this is also very overlooked, but they play a major role in economy as well. Especially in rural areas, women are responsible for a lot of the families, producing a lot of the family's needs. And although it doesn't count for what we call economic behavior today, but it's it's important for life to go on, and it's both economic and social, that they're doing this and keeping the family going.
So I think that there is other things that is the important rule of the woman in Iran, and that is the nightlife globalism. that I'm doing. So I think there is another important thing is that is a important and major role of Iranian woman. You mentioned about the importance of the literature and the poetry and the Persian language. According to that, we can also mention the nightly lullabies, because a lots of his stories, a lots of videos, a lots of music, a lots of stories. I have found that by using this beautiful language, the Persian language, women actually they inspired their sons to keep their mindset based on the resistance. For example, in Shahnameh, we have the same things.
Yeah.
And also, despite all of this, they can also.
That is such a beautiful concept. Resistance and teaching culture through lullabies. Of nurturing children, like the tenderness and education and love that goes into that.
Directly evolve into the war. For example, based on the Islamic thoughts in the Holy Quran, when the foreign army attack your country, it's wajib. I don't know what is it in
Mandatory.
English. It's necessary. I mean, you are forced based on your religion. You have to also involve in the defending your country and borders.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter about that your gender. It doesn't matter about your age.
Well, in some circumstances, yes. Like normally, women don't have to go to war. Like they don't have to physically pick up a gun and go to war. But in some circumstances, like if the enemy is like right there, it's entering your house, you have to defend yourself, and
They are
you
on
would
the
be,
streets.
yeah,
Yeah.
women would be like they are the last if they are the last resort of a war, they will have to fight. So they are obligated to fight religiously. But also like it doesn't mean that other times they're not fighting. As I said, keeping the economy going, the transferring of the culture and language through generations, and also today and in many other wars, women have stayed in the backstage of the wars, and they have helped the soldiers to keep fighting and keep going. They've made food, they've made clothes for them, they gave emotional support, and it's just it wouldn't be possible truly without women to win any war. And this is also said by both our supreme leaders so far. And that Imam Khomeini said the Iranian revolution, the Islamic revolution, would not have happened without women.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yes.
Sentence. But unfortunately, a lot of sides and veils of this beautiful identity is not portrayed in the Western media.
No, it's not.
Lots of people actually. Yeah, a lot of
It's
people
not.
have
It's not
actually
said that
misunderstanding.
60 to 70% of the engineering and the scientific work in Iran is done by women.
Hello.
It's not said that women actually exceed men in entering universities, and like 60% of universities are women. University students. And it's not said that women can work and get paid equally, which is still up for debate in the West, but we have it in Iran. Women have been able to vote since day one in the Islamic Revolution. And yeah, I think if women were truly oppressed that much, they would have known it themselves. They didn't need to be told by the West.
Yeah, I think, but they are oppressed by the economic sanctions.
Exactly.
Sure. Yes. And it's not only economic. Like the sanctions go very, very far into hurting civilians. That even like the cancer patients, the special disease patients, the babies with special needs, they are all affected by the sanctions. And the main people who have to take care of these patients are women, as doctors, nurses, and mothers and wives. But I don't think they care about women when it's in that narrative.
So actually, they want to narrate they want to narrate the Iranian woman based on their interests and based on their frame in the media. So they never ask a question.
The imperialist framework
of Iranian woman. So okay, could you please tell us what is your exact problem inside your territory? Is it about the hijab? Is it about I don't know, about the family, about being oppressed by the religion, by the government, by the rules? They never want to mention that things. As I told in one of my interviews, that Edward Said actually has a beautiful book named Orientalism. In that book, he teaches us that if you wanna...
Whoa, hello, Slick Eye. How are you doing? I'm just looking at the news. There's a lot of bullshit happening, per usual. The US president threatening genocidal war crimes, just casually. This is where we're at. But looking at some content where Iranian people are able to speak on the topic themselves. Where are you located? If you aren't comfortable answering, you don't have to.
Narrate the identities, especially in the Middle East countries that are very complicated. And you need to ask themselves, to narrate themselves. You are not allowed to portray and putting them in a special frame in the media. You need to, for example, his project was on the Palestine and the people of the West Bank. But I mean, it's true, and it's the same with lots of countries,
Texas,
especially like countries
in
like
Utah,
Iran and Lebanon and Iraq, because
these conservative
the society
bastions
of the woman, it's very complicated. For example, I had
How are
a travel
things for you in Texas?
to Iraq last year. It's my first video, and I saw that lots of women are working inside the Husseinias, and they are preparing food. They're preparing some places for dressing people, for welcoming people. But because they are not in the streets, their struggles and their efforts are not shown, and nobody knows that. So that is why it's very important. In the whole media in the world, we have to learn to allow the local people to navigate themselves.
That's very true.
My next question is that what is the worst misunderstandings about Iran from the foreign people's perspective?
Utah's very boring.
That could be a whole different video.
Never met anyone from Utah?
Iran?
Yeah.
That's fine.
That could be a whole different video. There are
if I had it my way, I would not be living here.
Iran.
Born and bred, unfortunately.
Yeah, just a short brief.
Yeah,
it's a weird
honorable
place
mentions
to exist.
Would be the fact that Iran is very diverse while being also very united. Like the diversity in the ethnic groups would make people think that Iran is easy to fracture with just a war. But
I've been to Texas a few times.
We see that throughout history, even when the Caucasus and
the place that I visited,
region of Herat and modern-day Afghanistan were separated from Iran, for decades, people of those regions referred to themselves as Iranians. Even though they were in the Caucasus, they were Turks, and they had their own country and their own system when they were separated from Iran, but they still referred to themselves as Iranians for many years before they started producing this separate national identity for themselves. And people of Herat, the same goes for Afghanistan. For many years, Iranians were hurt and devastated that a part of their heart was separated from them, and even like the people of Afghanistan thought it's it's cruel that they can't be connected to their motherland anymore. So we see this very diverse range of ethnicities, from Arab to Turk to Turkmen to Kurds to Baluch to Persians, and we think it's just as easy as making a little country out of each of them. But you see, they all shout Iran in their own local dialect. They say Iran in Kurdish, they say Iran in Arabic, they say Iran in
Actually, don't think I'll do. Yeah, there isn't much to do. And now because of climate change, we get hardly any snow. Like one of the main reasons why people want to come here. So we're supposed to have the Olympics in like
cities like Tabriz,
2032
yes, they're
or
very
something.
patriotic.
Like they were
We'll see if we have snow.
They were
You're not missing out on much.
Against Russia.
Very popular sites.
Exactly, yes. And people living on the borders
there are a
of
lot
modern
of people
day
that go
Iran
to
have been hurt most by
Moab.
foreign
There are
invasions,
a lot
and
of
they're
like
not even Persian.
red rock hikes
I
that
would
people
say
can do. It's really
unity
pretty there.
as well as diversity going together is one of the
we have a lot of mountains.
main misconceptions about Iran. And also, I think people usually don't understand the depth of historical
like to go to
identity
Zion's
behind
National
the
Park.
Current political system in
I'm
Iran.
not what you would call like
47
an
years ago,
outdoorsy
someone
type of person, so I don't necessarily
overthrew the Shah
partake
and took
in
over
these
the country,
activities. But
and they have been in power ever since. The Iranian society has shown that
I like to
it
observe.
wouldn't tolerate that if it was as they say.
What do you get up to in Texas?
2,500
What do you do for fun?
Years of history behind that decision, behind the fact that the people of Iran said yes to the Islamic Republic of Iran. And it's deeply rooted in what the people believe and what the people want. And the streets of Iran for the past 30
If you want to look up
days,
something really weird, that's in Utah, because it's the place of Mormons. There's this place called Gilgal Gardens. I'm going to type it in the chat so you can look it up if you want. But there's like a sphinx with Joseph Smith's head. It is so weird. It's a trip. It makes you feel like you're hallucinating. So there are many Mormon sites here, but there are also plenty of like very beautiful landscapes. Some native sites from tribes that are here.
My point.
Yeah, that was excellent. Thank you. Okay, actually, as a last question, I want to ask you that, and how does history and all things that you mentioned during our conversation represent themselves in the current war?
I want
to about the woman, about the history and the literature.
I want to answer from a bit, a bit more of a historical perspective. I want to talk about
hello,
past wars
Tan.
first.
Welcome. How are you doing?
When Alexander attacked Iran, and I'm not saying Alexander the Great
We're watching
on purpose, the Macedonian Alexander, because I don't
more
want
of
to
an Iranian
glorify
perspective.
When Alexander attacked Iran,
the bullshit that is happening
in the 4th
and
century
their
before
history
Christ,
of
he
resistance.
Overthrew the Achaemenid Empire, which was the first and the biggest empire in the world in that time. Alexander targeted, as we say today, the leadership. He killed the main leaders and he killed the elite, and he initiated a regime change. and the Greek the Greek elites took over after him, and all the things that happened with regime change. The local governments stayed the same, the infrastructure stayed intact mostly, but the empire fell. Then came the Mongolian invasion. They completely wiped out entire major cities like Neyshabur, like Merv, like Tus. They completely obliterated everything and everyone in those cities. They burned down libraries. They burned down historical sites. They massacred people very, very brutally, things that we wouldn't even see from the IDF today. And they are referred to as the worst thing that ever happened to Iran.
You wouldn't see from the IDF today.
And they didn't have much of a regime change, but they have destroyed infrastructure.
I wouldn't put it past them.
They killed civilians, all of that.
Like, as far as we know, what they've been doing.
All of that, not the
hard to imagine things that are more cruel.
Of the U.S. and Israeli today, not the war of Saddam Hussein on Iran, not any other war equals these two wars. The war with the Macedonians and the war with Mongols. Iran has gone through these two. And the fact that the Persian language, the Iranian culture, the Iranian customs have endured these two shows that nothing can wipe them out. The U.S.-Israeli attack on Iran kind of is the mixture of the attack of Alexander and Genghis Khan. Alexander killed the elites and the leadership, and Genghis Khan committed brutal war crimes and killed civilians and attacked our culture and libraries. And the U.S. is doing both of that at the moment. But the difference this time is that throughout history, there were three factors that counted for whether the country could stand against a foreign enemy or not. And those are a powerful state,
doing?
A capable army,
do you have
and
any other
patriotic
pictures?
people who are willing to join that army to defend their land.
I'm about to feed my cats.
Almost always the patriotic people were there.
What
as
are
I
you
said,
having for your meal?
It's a heroic and
You eat
legendary
some good
act to
food. You have
die
good
for your
taste, I have
country
to
in our
say.
culture. So Iranians have always been willing to give their life for their land. But what differed in the past wars was the not having a powerful state or a capable army. The times that we surrendered, it was the state, the king, the leader, not being strong enough to stand against foreign powers and say, "This is my country, you cannot invade us." Like what happened with the Qajar and Pahlavi dynasties during the First and the Second World War. During those two world wars, almost 50%, almost half of the Iranian population was wiped due to famine and hunger and disease, despite the fact that Iran had declared neutrality through the war. So this shows that the Iranian state didn't have enough power to stop the invasion, to stop the abuse of the Iranian people. There were times that the state, the king, did have the dignity and the nobility to stand and to fight, but what led to their defeat was that their army wasn't capable. Like the Achaemenids resisted against Alexander, but they couldn't possibly do it with their given tools and their given apparatus to fight back.
More pets.
So they were
is
noble,
crazy
they
about
were
her food.
patriotic, but they weren't materialistically strong enough. But now I can say for the first time in history we have all three. We have people who are willing to die. We have a state that has been through three wars with more than like 20 countries, I would say, because every time we're also fighting NATO, we're fighting American allies, we're fighting the Gulf states. Every time throughout these 47 years, we have fought.
There's a reason why they have been so resilient throughout time, the Iranian people, because time and time again they've been invaded and attacked. Such an old civilization, 5,000 years, so much history and art and culture, and the fact that we have a president that is threatening to, like, what it sounds like it's nuclear warfare is just unconscionable, which is why we need to be out protesting, which is what I will be doing, because it's unacceptable. Yes, as a vegetarian, I must say I'm grateful for my cooking skills. Oh, I love that. If you have any, like, good recipes for stuff, I'm all about that. If you want to, like, drop those in the Discord, I wouldn't be mad at that.
And our state has fought, and our army has been capable enough to stop the invader. And that's, I think, one of the new things in the Iranian history, and I see that as a result of the Islamic Revolution.
Yeah, thank you very much. Did you want to add a final point?
First of all, I want to mention the imposed Iraqi war on Iran that happened in the 80s, the 1980s. I just want to quickly point out that the war lasted for 8 years, and for the first 2 years, we didn't have anything. We just had a revolution. We had just had a revolution. We were sanctioned from day one, and we were just using the scraps of the Shah military. And we resisted for 8 years, and then the map stayed the same. The Iranian map didn't change at all. When you combine that with everything I said about the civilization and the culture and the
language.
And the language, and how honorable and accepted and valued it is to defend your homeland in the Persian culture, you see that Iran is not. Iran is impossible to be sent back to the Stone Ages. It's a fortress of people, of natural. Obstacle. It's a fortress of patriotic people, of natural obstacles, of now highly capable army, and a state that is willing to keep Iran and not surrender and not declare neutrality. So, yeah, I'm really happy that despite this war is hurting us a lot, and there are war crimes happening in Iran, it finally broke down the propaganda that's been going on for decades about Iran. Maybe even before the Islamic Revolution, the Iran was being portrayed as weak and third world, and just
been
a
on
puppet.
a string of soups of the day.
But right now, this propaganda is slowly
I love a good
breaking,
soup.
and people are seeing through all the facade that the Western media has put up for many years. And I think,
what are some of your favorites
before
that you've
attacking
made?
such fortress of a country, people need to
just finish this
read
bracelet.
About
it's in the colors of the Iranian flag.
All that we talked about.
I'm
they need to read about
working
Genghis
on
Khan.
a way to sell these
Alexander,
so
and
that
see how we
I can
dissolved
donate
those
money
brutal
to
cultures
the Iranian
into our own.
cause. I'm also making
And
some for
how
the Palestinian
using only our
flag,
language, our
Sudanese
traditions,
flag, the
our
Congo
cultures, we
flag,
were
and I want to
able to
do Cuba and
overcome
Venezuela
the
too.
most armed, the most highly armed militaries in the world. And I'm sure it's going to happen this time as well.
Thank you very much. If you have any question, please write them into comments. Inshallah, me and Atiya also, we're going to answer your questions related to this conversation. Atiya, I have actually a word of you that we will record a documentary in Tehran, right?
Yes, yeah, inshallah. We talked about it before the war, and now maybe we can have a different topic, but we will, inshallah, record a video together.
Inshallah, yes. You gotta wait for more videos with Atiya. Thank you very much for your listening. Goodbye.
Bye.
That would be cool. That would be cool for them to record together. I wonder what this announcement is about. I'll probably do that on my own time. Oh, this looks so good. I love Jinx Monsoon. The I've Had It ladies are entertaining. Maybe I'll watch that for Friday for Culture Corner. Mushroom soup. Ooh, that sounds good. The next one, Thai spice sweet potato coconut soup. That's like making me salivate. That sounds so good. Oh my god. Okay, so moving along, this is from Democracy Now! Again, and this is about the 1.5 trillion, with a T, trillion dollars that Trump and all of his war criminal cronies are requesting for their illegal, immoral war. And yes, this is the largest increase since World War II, as if the US doesn't already have most of its money and our taxes going towards warfare. So it's astounding. The people who were like, oh, the debt, the national debt, what are we going to do about the debt? We have to cut social programs so that we can balance the budget. That's like, okay, so you only care about death and war, you don't care about human beings. I mean, we already know this with a lot of our representatives, but the just blatant hypocrisy is so wild. Arts and crafts stream one day. I know, I'm working on getting like a setup so that I can have a camera showing what I'm doing and then have a day that we're doing more crafts. Because we need to be making more art. Just us everyday people, we have way more talent than in the 1%. And art is such a great way to channel resistance. It's very humanizing and grounding.
DemocracyNow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with
Are there
Juan
any
Gonzalez.
types of
The White House has unveiled a record-shattering Pentagon
like
budget request of $1.5 trillion for the next fiscal year. It's by far the largest year-over-year increase in a presidential military spending request since World War II. It includes funding for F-35 stealth fighter jets, new warships, including Virginia-class submarines, and Trump's Golden Dome missile defense shield, which the White House says will cost $180
shield is such bullshit. This increase in the budget should be very concerning to everyone for many reasons, but like the lack of desire to actually fund the resources and programs and services that the American people desperately need. But it also is signaling that they anticipate that this illegal aggression that they are pursuing is going to continue for a while. And that is very concerning.
$5 billion to boost U.S. shipbuilding, raise salaries for troops, and AI development in the military. This is President Trump at a White House event last week ahead of the budget proposal announcement.
It's not possible for us to take care of daycare, Medicaid, Medicare, all these individual things. They can do it on a state basis. You can't do it on a federal. We have to take care of one thing, military protection. We have to guard the country.
Critics have slammed Trump's budget proposal for continuing to funnel taxpayer money to increase U.S. military spending for Israel's wars on Gaza, Iran, and Lebanon. Last month, Senator Bernie Sanders filed 3 joint resolutions of disapproval in an attempt to block the sale of U.S. bombs worth over $660 million to Israel. This is Senator Sanders speaking with MS Now host Chris Hayes.
The wild thing about Trump saying that, we can't do daycare, we can't do daycare. Now, unfortunately, like every person on earth has a Trump impression because we can't escape that shithead. But this directly conflicts, once again, with things that he said on the campaign trail, like that one idiotic thing that he said, I think it was at, what is that group? The Organization of Black Journalists. I don't remember the name. But he was saying there, he was like, childcare is childcare. Because people were asking him about how they can't afford childcare, that it's an issue. And that he was like, yeah, it's very important that we need to take care of. And once again, going back on a campaign promise, just no sense of integrity. But we aren't expecting that from him. It just is continuing the line and using people for their votes, using people so that he can get into power again and avoid accountability.
The bottom line is that to give another 20,000 bombs to a country which committed genocide in Gaza happens to be, among many other things, forget the...
He just said genocide. Bernie has not been mentioning genocide. At least this is the first time I've heard. That is big. AOC also recently came out and said that she's against all weapons to Israel, including offensive weapons, because, like, what even is offensive weapon or defensive weapons? I mean, that she's against defensive weapons. That is also a great improvement. Me too, actually. Yeah, exactly.
Moral issue happens to be in violation of American law. You don't sell arms, according to American law, to countries that violate international law and human rights. Clearly, Israel has done that. Israel talked Netanyahu, who for 40 years has wanted a war with Iran.
He must be feeling the pressure from the left.
For more, we go to Washington, D.C., where we're joined by 2 people.
That's
we
great
start
to see.
with Josh Paul, veteran State Department official who resigned in 2023 under the Biden administration to protest the push to increase arms sales to Israel for its war on Gaza. He's now a director at A New Policy, the lobbying group he co-founded with fellow resignee Tariq Abash to press for a change in U.S. policy on Palestine and Israel.
What it means to
Josh,
have
thanks for joining us again.
The
Trump administration first declared an emergency soon after the U.S. and Israel launched joint strikes on Iran,
especially with
to bypass Congress on more than 20,000 bombs to Israel. You resigned over the push to increase arms sales during Israel's war on Gaza. Can you give your perspective on the significance of over 20,000 more bombs potentially being delivered to Israel and overall on this shattering $1.5 trillion military budget?
Yes, thank you, Amy. So let's start with that $1.5 trillion budget, which doesn't include, let's be clear, funding for the current Iran war. That will come in a further supplemental. So it's a vast amount of money and ultimately leveraged against the U.S. debt. We are spending our children's money to take the lives of other people's children. That's what it boils down to. It's just a vast amount of money in a way that is reckless by an administration that is...
Oh, is this what they're saying about, like, we need to, like, restock our munitions? That's what it's for? This isn't even an increase for the war? Oh my God.
Corrupt.
This is such a shit
when
show.
we look at this new weapon sales, these new weapon sales to Israel, 20,000, 1,000 pound bombs coming out of, let's be clear as well, US stocks. A lot of these weapons are not going to be built afresh. They're going to be transferred out of the US stocks, and then President Trump will, if he gets it, spend this money from the taxpayer and from our national debt to recuperate or to recoup ourselves for that. It is another burden certainly on the American people, but also on the world. At the end of the day, it is not just these bombs. There are also other weapons we have provided to Israel, including bulldozers that are being used to destroy Palestinian homes in acts of collective punishment. Senator Sanders will be bringing a vote next week to the floor of the Senate.
Let's be honest. The U.S. is the greatest purveyor of terrorism on earth. That's just the truth. And that is done through Israel as well, because it is this outpost in the Middle East, this aircraft carrier for aggression, for its genocidal project. It's all at the behest of the U.S. That's where they wouldn't have the means in order to pursue genocide and to constantly be bombing their neighbors, Israel, if it wasn't for U.S. funding. And we still don't have health care, and it's still hard to pay for medications and rent, and it's bleak.
Against the bombs, against these bulldozers, and I think it is vital that we see as many Democratic senators as possible vote to block those weapons, and ideally Republicans as well, because this is no one's interest whatsoever.
And Josh, you said that the foreign military financing, or FMF, serves almost as a gift card for Israel to spend on weapons. You talk about the disproportion in military aid specifically to Israel that the United States has had historically compared to other countries in the world?
So Israel has always been by far the largest recipient of U.S. military grant assistance. In President Trump's budget request,
we have so many representatives that somehow are just always angry about sending money and weapons to Ukraine, but nothing to be said about Israel.
The provision to Israel of U.S. funding comprises 63% of the global available total. People keep asking, why do we keep getting pulled back into wars in the Middle East? What about this rebalance to Asia? Well, when you're spending the majority of your global funding in Israel and in the region, in the Middle East, of course you're going to keep getting pulled back. We are not getting pulled back to the Middle East. We are anchored to it as a function of our own funding to Israel.
Yeah, that's a great way of stating it.
Go ahead, Juan.
Yeah, I just want to say last month the State Department approved potential arms sales to 3 Middle East countries worth more than $23 billion. Talk about this aid to countries like the UAE, Kuwait, and Jordan.
So this isn't aid, this is sales, but the Trump administration used an emergency authority. These cases were already sitting under congressional review, and Congress had questions, both about the arms sales to Israel and about the arms sales to the UAE. The UAE, of course, being involved right now or supporting the genocide that is occurring in Sudan. The administration, I think, very cynically used the current war with Iran to essentially say, okay, we're declaring an emergency. We're not going to answer any more questions from Congress about these human rights abuses, about these risks.
A lot of genocide.
And we are just going to move these forward. So a very cynical, very disturbing use of the existing authorities.
And before we go to Rob Weissman, I wanted to ask you, 4 astronauts are part of the NASA Artemis II crew, became the furthest humans from Earth in all of history, officially, as they began their trajectory, which they just finished around the dark side of the moon. Trump's budget plans to cut 23% of NASA's budget, $3.6 billion cut to the agency's science unit, which could cancel 40 programs. Can you talk about all of these budget cuts across federal agencies and how it's a path for further privatization of the federal government?
Yeah, so first of all, I think we can all think of four other people that we would rather be the furthest they could be from the earth. So what Trump is doing is essentially creating an opportunity for
like,
SpaceX
I wish we
in
could send
particular,
some certain people
and
into
for other
space.
major companies that have close relationships with the White House to essentially privatize space, to continue to advance, through the defense budget, President Trump's, as he sees it, national security role, and to militarize space, but then to cut the civilian side of the funding in order to allow profit-seeking companies, the private sector, essentially to build up its role there as well. So it's a lose-lose both for science and for humanity.
So a moral obscenity, that's what Public Citizen and nearly 300 other groups nationwide are calling the budget. They're urging Congress to reject Trump's budget proposal, which could cut billions of dollars in social programs for education, health care, climate, and affordable housing. The White House budget request also continues to aggressively slash federal programs Trump has decried as, quote, unquote, woke, aimed at diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI. For more, we're also going to Robert Weissman, co-president of Public Citizen. His group just releasing a statement titled, Trump's Budget Proposal is a Moral Obscenity. Rob, thanks again for joining us. Lay out
all of these programs
not being
that
funded.
have made it so there is unnecessary death and suffering of especially people who need these resources the most. It really is a genocide against the poor, against the working class, people who are marginalized. And this is, again, just par for the course with U.S. policy being extremely genocidal at home and abroad.
What is being cut?
Yeah, well, I think we got to look at these two things simultaneously. A $500 billion increase, a 50% increase in the Pentagon budget, and a roughly $100 billion proposed cut for everything else. So the everything else that's going to be cut includes some of the items you were talking about, includes funding for education, includes funding for health care, huge investments in science, biomedical science, all kinds of sciences, including the NASA program you were talking about. And of course, cuts for programs to help the poor and vulnerable, because that's what Trump and Russ vote prioritize. Those cuts are not likely to go through. The Congress is not going to agree to them. However, to some extent, they reflect what Trump is actually doing in refusing to spend money that Congress has appropriated. On the other side is a $500 billion proposed increase for the Pentagon, and Congress is going to take that seriously. So $500 billion, it's beyond the wildest dreams of the military-industrial complex. All it means is buying more weapons for more war. But if you stop and think about what could we do with $500 billion, if we had the political will, which Trump says he has, for war spending, if we had the political will for peace spending, what could we do? Well, we could restore all of the cuts to Medicaid and food assistance in Trump's prior bill. We could expand Medicare to cover dental, health, and vision. We could have universal care for children 0 to 4. We could double the budget for the EPA. We could invest in affordable housing and end homelessness in the United States. We could restore and expand all of the foreign assistance that's been cut, which public health experts say will lead to the deaths of millions by 2030. We could invest all of that and more. Not one of those things, all of those things and more with this $500 billion. So it is a moral obscenity both for what it proposes to spend and for what it shows we could do but are refusing to do because we don't have the political will.
So cute.
And Rob Weissman, in terms of what it proposes to spend, it's an astounding amount of
yeah, that is wild to hear all of the things that it could be funding, and so depressing to be like, glad our leaders are all corrupt and are bought and sold by the industrial war complex, that they're cheering this on. Yay.
Money. What in addition to the fact that Trump has been pushing the NATO countries to increase their military spending, which will, of course, rebound back to American arms manufacturers, and the need of the Gulf states to increase their military spending because of the war that he embarked on here with Iran. What does President Trump propose to spend this increase on?
Well, the details matter, but I have to say, I don't think they really know. This amount is so large, they're just throwing a giant number out there. We saw in the last tax and budget reconciliation bill $150 billion extra going to the Pentagon, and the Pentagon made a desperate effort to try to spend as much as it could in September because they were running out of time, according to their own timetable, and they were just throwing it everywhere they could. I think
the Pentagon already has so much money that they don't even know what to do with. That's why they are able to fund endless foreign aggression and also fund all of the bullshit that's happening at home.
Two things that are worth teasing out that they're looking to do. One is the president's Golden Dome project, which is a kind of a revitalization of what used to be known as Star Wars, an alleged AI-driven system to provide protection against ballistic missile attacks in the United States, which is
because AI
impossible
will be
to achieve,
trustworthy,
according to scientists.
We should trust
which
the
is
safety
projected
of
out
the
to
American
spending
people
over
with AI.
Many years at trillions of dollars, and then a massive new increase of investment in the nuclear program to invest in more nuclear weapons rather than just decommissioning the ones that we have on hand.
And if you could talk about the White House calling on Congress to approve a significant portion of its proposed military spending increase using the filibuster-proof reconciliation process, which would allow Republicans to approve the budget without any Democratic support, Rob. Explain in lay terms what's going on here.
Yeah, so it can sound tricky, but it's pretty straightforward. They're proposing this preposterous increase of $500 billion. By the way, on top of a $1 trillion budget that should be cut, because it's already vastly more than we need to spend. And this is an agency, the Pentagon, that can't pass an audit, that is the sender of waste and fraud in the federal government. It should easily be cut by $200 billion. But they're proposing a $500 billion increase. That's a lot. Democrats aren't going to agree to that. So their proposal is the majority of that should be funded through this special process that you're referencing, the reconciliation process, that cannot be filibustered and could be driven through just by a majority of Republicans in the Senate, or by a totality of the Republicans in the Senate. So it's a way to get around the normal appropriations process, which requires some bipartisan agreement. It would mean that if they do $350 billion without the filibuster, the rest of the budget is kind of a trick. So if you think you're passing just a $1.1 trillion Pentagon budget, you're actually passing a $1.5 trillion Pentagon budget because they plan to do the rest of it without Democratic agreement. And just to make it even worse, to add on to the point that Josh made, this does not include the additional $200 billion they're going to seek to fund and expand the Iran war. So this is separate from the Iran war funding. If you add that in, the Pentagon budget would be up at $1.7 trillion.
We just have about 20 seconds left. What is Public Citizen calling for now?
Well, absolute no, not another dollar for the war, not an extra dollar for the Pentagon. We want cuts, but right now the priority is to stop this from going through. And we think that is achievable as you juxtapose these numbers of what the tweets you were reading from the cartoon villain president threatening to destroy civilizations.
Yes.
He doesn't need a penny more to engage in the lunatic behavior he's trying to inflict on the rest of the world.
He needs to be
Rob Weissman, I want to
impeached,
thank you for being with us, co-president of Public Citizen.
He
A
needs to be
recent statements
imprisoned.
headline, Trump's budget proposal
Someone
is a
needs to
moral
do something
obscenity.
that
And I
we're
want to
all
thank
waiting
Josh
for.
Paul, veteran State Department official who resigned in 2023 under the Biden administration to protest the push to increase arms sales to Israel amidst its assault on Gaza, and now slamming the military budget that's being proposed. Happy birthday, Matthew Ely. That does it for our show. I'll be speaking tonight at the Green Music Center at Sonoma State University in California. That's at 7:30 tonight at Weill Hall. Juan will be speaking on Thursday and
She's going
Friday
to
here in New York
California?
City at the
She's
CUNY
still
Grad Center at the
in New York
Latinx
City?
Freedom Conference.
We'll see
Democracy
if
Now!
she's able to
Currently
make it
accepting
there with
applications
how the
for a
airports are
development
going.
associate position. Go to our website at democracynow.org. I'm Amy Good.
Okay. Wow. I mean, that was great to see Bernie actually use the word genocide. That is some movement. That's really important. Okay, this is from More Perfect Union. They have some really great content. And this is how Trump's son-in-law became a foreign agent. Especially now, he's unappointed, he's unelected, and he's just supposedly like doing all of these deals. All of the Trump children are benefiting from this war. They all have investments in arms sales and like drones and shit. We also know that Pete Hegseth and his stockbroker were investing in war companies. I don't know the specifics of who, or which companies, I mean. So it's like the corruption is abounding, it is rampant, and we have yet to find out the worst of it, the stuff that they are keeping hidden from everyone else.
What people call conflicts of interest, Steve and I call experience and trusted relationships.
Ugh. That is so vile. What people see as human beings dying, I see as an opportunity to make money. That's what he's saying.
In 1 month, the US dropped more than 5,000 bombs on Iran and billed the American taxpayer over $30 billion to do it. And one name keeps coming up as responsible: Jared Kushner. But to understand how, you need to know about two key relationships.
Dumbass haircut.
The first goes back to when Kushner was
like
a teenager. Buried in a
Riddle.
2017 New York Times article is a detail that
also has the
stayed under
same
the radar.
lifeless,
When Benjamin Netanyahu used to
snake-like
stay in the
eyes.
United States, he would stay at the Kushner family home in New Jersey. Most diplomats meet foreign leaders at negotiating tables. Jared Kushner met Benjamin Netanyahu when Netanyahu was sleeping in his bed, forcing Jared to sleep in the basement. The second
What?
relationship is with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, MBS.
God.
And to understand that one, you need to know what happened the moment Kushner left
There he
Trump's
is,
first
Tom
White
Riddle.
House. He started a private equity firm called Affinity Partners to capitalize on his Middle East connections, despite having no experience in asset management whatsoever. So he went to the Saudi State Public Investment Fund and asked for money. And so the Saudi government Kushner had spent 4 years protecting wired him $2 billion. Kushner took that $2 billion in Saudi money to become the largest shareholder in Phoenix Holdings.
He looks like
Israel's
the way he presents himself, like the haircut, the suits. He looks like he could be Mormon, to be honest. That's very much the look.
biggest insurance company. Israel and Saudi Arabia used to be historic rivals, and yet Kushner, leveraging those Netanyahu and MBS relationships, said he wanted to open a, quote, investment corridor between Saudi Arabia and Israel. He is the corridor. Saudi money flowing through Kushner into the Israeli economy is the financial infrastructure of a new Middle East, recentered around Gulf Israeli ties. And every dollar that flows through it builds a region that doesn't want Iran at the table. Netanyahu actually said it out loud.
Saudi Arabia will have a lot to gain. I think all these countries around Iran are threatened by Iran, and I think peace between Israel and Saudi Arabia would be really possible and probably very close once this thing happens.
And then came the
that
Iran
guy.
negotiations this past February.
That war
Diplomats
criminal,
from Britain
baby
and Oman
killer.
said a deal was close and that war could be avoided. But Kushner told Trump there was no chance of a deal and that Iran was about to attack the United States. The Pentagon briefed congressional staff the exact opposite, that Iran had no plans to strike the US. The Guardian reported that a diplomat with direct knowledge of the talks said Kushner was regarded as an Israeli asset, trying to drag the US into war. An Israeli asset who had Netanyahu sleeping in his childhood bedroom. Kushner's ideology was there long before the money was. What the money did was align financial interests perfectly with ideology.
History will look back on this period of the US with so much shame and confusion as to how we got here. It really is wild. Okay. So, let's move on to this video by the I've Had It ladies, where they're talking about Trump's war with Fox News. Fox News is starting to turn on him now, like Laura Ingraham, and this is because of their audience. It's not because they've found a conscience or they have like a line that they don't want to cross. It's because they are realizing that their audience is turning against them. To be clear, that's what's happening. It's not because they have discovered any sort of morality. But I am curious about this.
We are in the middle of a war, and instead of listening to his
Is that an Asmongold emoji? Did he... What happened to him recently? Did he get kicked off or he stopped streaming or something? I heard that he's like not around anymore or something. I don't know what's going on. I need to find out about that.
Pentagon, he has Pete Hegseth firing generals, and Kanks, Donald Trump, sits around and binge watches Fox News. There is a queen on Fox News named Jessica Tarlov, and she does just incredible work, fact-checking. And
Jessica Tarlov is the lone sane voice on Fox News. She'll go on The Five, and she is constantly outnumbered, constantly being talked over and belittled. I don't know how she's able to keep up. I don't know how she's able to stay there. Like, what effect does that have on your blood pressure and your health? Like, how do you not, I mean, maybe she's making enough money that helps with the medical bills, I guess. But power to her. German streamer. Oh, okay. Don't keep up with his idiocy. Same. We're in the same boat. If I find out, I'll be sure to relay the information. Ooh, I love her glasses.
Checking propaganda in real time. So a lot of these Fox viewers that have been so radicalized, the only time they ever hear a tinge of sanity is from Jessica Tarlov. And of course, Trump hates her.
The rare people.
And in the middle of the war, he has...
Also, they only hear sanity, like the rare people who are willing to go on Fox News, like these candidates, progressive candidates, and be willing to be interviewed, to spar with the journalists, to spar with the reality TV perpetuators. So, because it's entertainment. That was Fox News's argument in their defamation case, or where they were talking about these illegal... They were talking about all of these lies with the rigged election, and they had to give a huge payout. They lost that case. And their argument was that they weren't news, that they were entertainment. You can definitely tell. I mean, that's obvious. Even just looking at their headlines are like, "You'll never believe this." It's like all clickbait and no facts in the headlines. I mean, we know that no facts really get to that audience, but it has done so much damage. Fox News has done so much damage to relationships, families, my family, many others, the country at large. There has to be consequences.
He's attacking her because, you know, he loves to attack women. Pop this up. Trump, for Fox executives only, take Jessica Tarlov off the air. She is, from her voice to her lies and everything else about her, one of the worst personalities on television, a real loser. People cannot stand watching her. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President DJT. And just a couple of notes here. While the war is going on, Trump is watching Fox, you guys, just to make sure they stay on script, because this is a presidency that rules by propaganda, like all fascist autocrats do. And he's trashing Jessica Tarlov because she's one of the only dissenting voices on the network. So he has this massive, massive, massive insecurity. And anytime it's exposed, he lashes out, pumps.
You know, this truth, as it were, is the answer to the question I often ask myself about people surrounding him, not reining him in, keeping him on point, because he just goes fucking crazy if everybody doesn't agree with him all the time. It's really, really sick.
Yeah, and I think we always have to remember, we cannot apply our logic to this man. You cannot say, well, why aren't people reining him in? By design, he has surrounded himself with loyalists. Scholars have taught us that autocrats and dictators, specifically by design, surround themselves with loyalists.
People.
That's why you see all of this purging. The deep state that they spoke about during the campaign, those were nonpartisan government workers, people that wanted health insurance, wanted a steady job. Government seemed like a good employer, couple weeks of vacation. All of these people have been purged and replaced with loyalists. And, you know, we also have to give credit to Jessica Tarlov because she sits next to Jesse Waters all hour. I mean, that is, I don't know how she does it. Okay.
Jesse Waters.
And then
there are so many Republicans that are closet cases. These closet cases are ruining the world. Teeny, hi, come here. I heard a sad meow. Bug. Sometimes if I don't have the door like open to the exact space that she likes, she like won't come in. She's like, oh, I guess there's no room for me. It's like, you can go through there. I'm gonna open it for her.
Here is a screen grab from Fox coverage on the war. Pop this up. This is Fox Digital. Iran war nears completion as Trump eyes deadline. What the end game could look like. U.S. strikes hit one of Iran's largest bridges this week as Trump warns much more to follow. So this is just their online reporting, all right? Nothing about the batshit crazy press conference that we saw yesterday. Nothing. We don't hear anything about that from Fox News. They are constantly sane-washing the fact that he took credit live on television for killing.
Curious question. Have you ever introduced them to goat milk? No. Interesting. Hi, Bug. Have you with your cats? Although this one, she loves milk. Like if we're eating cereal or like having just like a glass of milk or ice cream, she'll like sit there with her pupils super huge, just like perched, like waiting. Speaking of this press conference that she's mentioning, Pete Hegseth was comparing this rescue mission for one of the pilots that was shot down over Iran. He was comparing it to the resurrection of Christ. Like, what? The Christian nationalism in this administration is so deeply concerning. And like all of the like religious fanatics that Pete Hegseth surrounds himself with, like they're doing like prayers at the Pentagon. He's kicking out people who who are Catholic. So about to try a blue spirulina goat milk. Oh, okay. Let me know how that goes over with Ghibli and Gamora. Hello, Junk Saint. Welcome. Pete is goofy AF. Yeah, he's not a serious person. He's like, imagine like the worst kind of frat boy ever. That's him. I think because Trump loves him so much, I think he secretly sucks him off in his free time. Because Trump is like so enamored with him. Because he also gives off so many gay vibes to me. Like, he also had a makeup room built in the Pentagon because he has to always be like camera ready. Just like, these people act like cartoons. They really act like cartoon villains. It is insane. But this is where we're at because the lack of accountability for years and years with political leaders has gone on. The complicity of the Democratic Party with the fascists being the other side of the fascist coin. It's like we didn't get here from nowhere.
Osama bin Laden and advised everybody to read a book about it. He says the Iranians in this press conference were begging him, please, sir, even though you're bombing right next to me, please keep bombing. The gays for Iran, save us, all this crazy shit.
Yeah, anytime Trump goes, please, sir, you know it's a lie. Anytime he has like the random person that he never names that's like, please, sir, you're doing such a great job, sir. Like, yeah, we know you're lying, bitch.
Crickets. They just have to tell this cult, they're like cattle, and they just guide them as to what they want to hear. Oh, we're going to bomb Iran. We're liberating them. Oh, it's nearing completion. No critical thought. And that's why what Jessica Tarlov does is so important, because probably maybe 8-10% might hear her and go, I wonder why they keep her on if she really is lying, because clearly she's not lying.
Well, she's the only one on that station that is not lying, that's actually telling the truth. I mean, my parents watched The Five. They will even tell you, and they are like ass deep in MAGA, they will even tell you, Jessica Tarlov, she really comes with all the numbers and data. And I thought, so why aren't you listening?
Yeah.
But they don't.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Because
Fox News audience does not like her for that reason.
For her, because she doesn't get into the personalities of it. She touts all of these numbers, but Fox News, we have to remember, they paid $1 billion for lying about the 2020 election. In any other world, that business would be considered, oh, they're liars, they're out of business. Catholic Church pays billions and billions of dollars for covering up child rape. In any other world, that business, the Catholic Church, would be out of business. But we always have this. I love that she called Western culture,
the Catholic Church a business,
where we let certain people get away with stuff that we would never let other people get away with.
Such.
People that
LDS Church,
powerful,
Utah,
or
where
in
I'm
positions
located.
of power, and that brings me to the Epstein files. It's just a play. Fox News gets away with this. The Catholic Church gets away with it. The Southern Baptist Church gets away with it. All of these billionaires, including the President of the United States, get away with it. All right. And in a piece for Mediaite, Colby Hall writes about what the Fox viewer sees every single day. Pop this up. So watch Fox for a day and you'll see it gravitating toward a particular set of facts. Iran's weakness, the necessity of the mission, the heroic success of the U.S. military, how the left is actively rooting for the U.S. to lose. When criticism does appear, it's aimed away from Trump himself. He may not have been fully briefed. He may have received bad information. He may be navigating forces beyond his control. Trump is suggested to oddly be the victim in all of this, as bizarre as it sounds. And Pops
classic Darvo shit, like of abusers.
Conversations with her Fox binging parents, where
He's just constantly
they blame
the
everybody
victim.
around
He's
Trump,
the aggressor and the victim,
but not Trump.
Right. They despise Stephen Miller. They think he is absolutely appalling and vile. Yet they haven't made the connection that Trump is Stephen Miller's boss. And but for Trump, Stephen Miller wouldn't be in the job. And that continues to happen. One thing it's been on my mind
that
since
shows
this
the
weekend.
cult
Laura
of it all.
Ingraham wrote in a post that I saw, well, I guess the left, and I'm paraphrasing, I guess the left's mad that they got the U.S. pilot back. No.
No one's
I am
saying that.
delighted that the U.S. was able to rescue the pilot. Where my angst and frustration and
false
concern
choices.
is that we're at war with Iran in the first place.
Yeah.
Not that a pilot was rescued. That
He shouldn't have had to
Steve
be in that
Witkoff,
situation in the
Jared Kushner,
first
Donald
place.
Trump,
Both of those
that
pilots.
They are so bloodthirsty that they got us into the war, Laura. That's why I'm mad.
Yeah. And we also are seeing the most conscientious objectors in the military, the U.S. military, than we have seen in this modern day, maybe since the Vietnam War. It really is astounding how many military personnel are like, I don't feel good about this. I don't agree with this war. I don't want to be killing people. Like, I have many issues with the U.S. military, and I don't understand why people would want to join. I mean, many people do just to like get an education. I don't think that's worth it, but that's just me. But it is very telling that so many people are refusing to be deployed.
That's a great point. And I think as to this Colby Hall piece, I think it's really important that the Republican Party is always like, well, we're the party of individualism and of personal accountability. And time again, they're not. They're a party, they're a cult, they are cattle. 90 days ago, they opposed wars in the Middle East, regardless of what country it is.
Yeah.
And as it pertains to Laura Ingraham bringing this down to a black and white tribal type thing, this is their default setting.
It's another one with the
left is
Iranian
rooting against
flag
America.
colors
The
that I'm going to figure
right
out
is
how to sell somewhere so that we can donate money to people on the ground who need it. I also have some for Palestinian flag and the Sudanese flag, and I'm going to be doing one for the Congo and Venezuela and Cuba. I'll keep you all updated. I'll figure out something.
So pro-America. Trump will dry hump an American flag, and that's why we like him. We love President Trump because he loves America more than anybody else. And every time they can bring it down to this black and white argument, it really works well with the Fox News viewers who lack fundamentally the ability to critically think. And call that stupidity, call it what you want, but they genuinely lack the ability to critically think.
That's what it is.
There are certain things that I love to do that bring me great joy, like getting a manicure, pedicure, playing tennis. But some things, self-care, feel like a total chore, like shaving. All of that changed when I discovered Flamingo. Flamingo was born when the women who helped build Harry's noticed the other companies selling women's razors were just shrinking the men's razors down and making them pink. They rolled their eyes and they decided to shake things up. They created a shaving solution that's actually made with women's bodies in mind. There's no pink tax with Flamingo, and a pink tax is when you're paying more just because it's a women's product. It's not flimsy. There's no irritation, and it's quite attractive. And their starter set has everything you could need, whether it's time for an everything shower or even if you just need to shape up below your brow line. They have this whole kit, and it's just $7, and shipping, you guys, totally free. So listener, for a limited time, our listeners can get the Flamingo's starter set for only $7 at shopflamingo.com/ihip. This set includes the Flamingo Original Razor, 1 5-blade cartridge, a 1-ounce foaming shave gel, and a shower holder. Just head to shopflamingo.com/ihip to claim this offer. And after you purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. And here's another screen grab from Media Matters reporting that former Fox hosts are calling it out. Right-wing media figures castigate Fox News for pushing, quote, blatant propaganda on the war in Iran. Former Fox News and other right-wing media figures have called out the network for cheerleading Trump's war. So Tucker Carlson called Fox, quote, the world headquarters for boots on the ground. And Megyn Kelly called Fox's Iran war coverage insufferable. So these are two people that were inside the Death Star. They know what bullshit Fox is. We
know this from their text messages as well, how they make fun of people, they make fun of Trump and stuff. They don't have any sort of convictions. They don't have a spine. And I think the only reason that Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly seem to be seeing the light, it's not that. They are seeing their audiences turn on them. I think that goes for any of these talking heads, these figures, that it's public pressure, that they're losing money. It comes down to money. And they are intent on keeping their business, their independent enterprise, whatever that they're engaging in, media, and that they see that these audience members are like, oh, we don't like genocide, we don't like war, we voted against this. And so now that they're outside of the Fox News ecosystem, they can actually say these things. But when people are in it, you are just expected to go along. It's very rare that we have seen Laura Ingraham actually start to push back on certain things on air on Fox News. It's not doing nearly enough that like she needs to be doing, but we are seeing some change happening there. It certainly is being motivated by the Fox News audience. I know this because of lurking on some of their sites on Fox News, and people are turning against them. It's like we still need more people to break off from the coalition so that they really feel the public pressure, but yeah, that is what is moving the needle, not because these people have a sense of morality.
In the lawsuit that I mentioned earlier, where Fox had to pay $1 billion, in Discovery, they got all their text messages, and Hannity and everybody's just trashing Trump about what a nut he is. But you can't trust Tucker and you can't trust Megyn. And there's this saying, a broken clock is right twice a day, right? And I think that always applies to these people, because Tucker Carlson, I remember, was super critical of the whole Venezuela situation where they went and captured Maduro. And he was very critical of it on his station. And then like 3 or 4 days later, he's at the White House standing there clapping like a trained seal for Donald Trump. So you cannot believe these people. And Megyn Kelly, you cannot trust this person, because here is a video of Megyn Kelly, who her quote is, Fox Iran war coverage is, quote, insufferable. But at the same time, she also says shit like this. Play the clip.
Exactly. Trump could drop a nuke and I'd still vote Republican over those people, because they want to Avenue voter. In some ways, I really am. But honestly, what they want to do is nuke our own country. It's like the open border, what they're doing to children, all that stuff is still they would do it all if put back in power. And I think most Republicans know that, which is
okay. Pumps.
She makes no sense. She knows that's not going to happen, but she makes hundreds of thousands of dollars going on there and tiptoeing into sanity. But then she has to, throw red meat. Here's the thing: Trump dropping a nuke on Iran, as crazy as that sounds, I would not rule it. This man has absolutely zero ability to look at consequences. So Megyn Kelly, what you need to be doing is rallying the people that listen to you to try to get their people in their districts to get real about the 25th Amendment. This man is a fucking nut.
Never happen, Pumps. It'll never fucking happen. We cannot apply our logic to these people, because what does she default to? She defaults to Donald Trump is crazy, and I agree. And the Fox News coverage is insufferable. But, viewer, if he dropped a nuke, I'd still go vote for him, because the Democrats want to nuke America. And it's like, Megyn Kelly, no, we don't. We want your viewers to have health care. We want your viewers to earn a livable wage. We want billionaires to pay their fair share in taxes, because our country simply cannot afford them. We actually support the troops. 30% of all homeless people are veterans.
Yeah.
30%.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you say you support the
They don't
troops,
care about
support them
veterans.
in totality. But in fact, you support the nuke, and pun intended here, but you do not support the fallout. Then you're going to play, victim. So this is a typical right-wing media bullshit argument that they always play, that yes, Donald Trump's batshit and he's so crazy and he's so dangerous and Fox News is a propaganda machine. But you know what? We're going to vote for him all over again because we're fucking stupid. That's the message. All right, that's all we have. Like, subscribe, comment, and we will be back later with more news.
All right. Let's see what we have next. Okay, this is something that I saw recently. There was an effigy of Trump burned in Mexico City, and I wanted to see what that was about. Juniper's joined us for this segment. Yeah. That little meow. Okay. Amazing. Garrett's and crafts I'd like to go back to his plate. Ooh, and like pottery? That's cool. Ceramics? I love that. And it exploded. Okay, that's very cool.
La quema así a lo grande, yo creo que tiene como 40 años. Así a lo grande. Porque cuando estábamos chicos, mi tío quemaba. La casa de nosotros daba hasta allá, hasta el camellón. Allá había un árbol grandote y ahí colgaba 2 o 3 judas que eran los que quemaban el sábado de gloria nada más. Pero ya empezaron a crecer nuestros hijos y ellos fueron los que empezaron a jalar otra vez la tradición.
I think it's incredible that people can express themselves in a way that they want to and what's important to them. I think it shows artistic difference, and even as something as literal as this, it brings people together, it's funny, and I think it's important for people to show creativity in different ways. Art isn't one form, it's multiple forms.
Yes. It's like what we were talking about. Art is resistance. It can be.
Es un demonio de 2 cabezas, la mitad es Trump y la mitad es Netanyahu. Es pues, representar ahorita el mal encarnado en el mundo. 2 personajes
evil incarnate.
Bastante siniestros y desafortunadamente poderosos.
Yeah,
entonces
pues
es una crítica a su intento de gobernar el mundo entre ellos dos.
Amazing. Love to see that. Okay. Food prices spiking. Yeah. Let's watch this and then we'll get into some of the writings of Voltaire in preparation for literature story time in the Scarlet Pimpernel.
On some of the economic effects of the war with Iran, about a third of the world's fertilizer supply passes through the Strait of Hormuz, and its effective closure is causing shortages and price spikes for fertilizer during the crucial spring planting season. That has led to fears of both elevated food prices and lower crop yields across the globe. This morning, Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins told PBS News' Liz Landers that, quote, everything was on the table to fix the problem for American farmers.
Yes, we'll be reading Voltaire. I didn't know it was Poetry Month. That's fun. Yeah, we're going to read some of his stuff, get some context for the book, because situations are the situation of the French Revolution are very similar in many ways. So we'll talk about that too.
So as we're moving into planting season, it's only about 20 to 25% of our farmers that didn't lock that in. We are working directly to ensure that we can get them what they need and it won't bankrupt them.
Now, despite those numbers, farmers we spoke with say they fear these cost increases could put them over the edge. Here's some of what they told us.
My name is Russell Baining. My family and I farm right south of San Antonio. We're buying nitrogen right now, and it's about 40% higher than it was, 2 or 3 months ago, before the conflict. Let's just say that.
I'm Lance Lillibridge from Benton County, Iowa. We booked most of our fertilizer before the conflict in Iran. However, some of it we did not because it was too expensive. We're probably going to go without that particular nutrient on our crop this year. A lot of other farmers are doing the same thing.
My name is Matt Frostick. I have a crop and livestock operation in Michigan. In January, we were looking at nitrogen for about $350 a ton. Today, that number is bouncing around $600.
Steve Turner, I'm a farmer in northwest Illinois, located about 40 miles northwest of Springfield.
Voted for
We've got
Trump.
a lot of our inputs paid
How are they feeling now?
But I'm afraid
Especially
we're going to be
with
looking at some
their
elevated
workers
prices
being
for a while. There's people saying, well, there's 80% of the fertilizer has already been purchased for this year's crop. And we actually heard that figure from USDA. Even if 80% is pre-purchased and the other 20% goes up 50% or more, it can still be a pretty good hit for you.
The reality is we're not breaking even. We didn't break even the last 2 years.
With the increases in the input prices, there are no margins. They appear to be zero at this point.
It's just not the fertilizer, it's going to be the fuel end of this thing. And I know everybody's experiencing that right now with the elevated fuel prices.
I always say if gas and diesel go up, if oil goes up, everything else is going to follow in some form or fashion.
As fuel becomes expensive and it's hard to produce that crop or costs more to produce and transport that crop, it all kind of equates to higher prices.
So much of growing.
That's very true. Like, we have yet to feel some of the worst impacts of these fuel shortages because of the nonsensical illegal war that the maniacal president and his stooges are forcing on everybody else. And that impacts all trade of products. And this is going to hit us very hard. And I don't think the American people are prepared for how much pain and suffering that will happen because of these high prices. People are already feeling like they can't afford things or can't afford things, and it will only be getting worse.
Crop is out of our control, and we can only manage certain things. When the prices of these inputs become so high, what do we do? I don't know. And I don't think anybody's got a wonderful answer to it.
Well, when it comes to policy, I mean, frustration might be a little bit of a strong word. There's maybe anxiety, even before the conflict. Let's be honest about it. Tariffs have caused the price of our inputs to increase. If you want to look at it from the 30,000-foot view, agriculture pretty much still trusts this administration. That's still what I hear.
When you look at the Strait of Hormuz, we've got to have shipments out of there. And I think anything, whether it's our U.S. Navy or whatever it is, to
the Trumpers
stabilize that region and get shipments out of there. Because we were already fighting record inflation and a price squeeze already. And this is just, more on it right there.
For more on the impact of this fertilizer shortage, we turn now to Caitlin Welsh. She's the director of the Global Food and Water Security Program at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Welcome back to the program. It's good to have you.
Thanks for having me.
So the Strait of Hormuz has been closed now for longer than a month. How critical is it for global fertilizer supply?
Very critical, and for a number of reasons. First of all, because the Gulf is responsible for production of a significant amount of major fertilizer types, being the top exporter of some major types of nitrogen fertilizer and phosphate fertilizer. The Gulf is also responsible for significant proportions of exports of inputs to fertilizers as well, liquefied natural gas and sulfur. And combined, both the restrictions on exports to fertilizer and inputs to fertilizer has caused the price spikes we just heard about.
We'll say more about that. What has it meant for prices and availability?
Yeah, the prices of all fertilizers are increasing, whether or not they're exported from the Gulf. And the prices of nitrogen-based fertilizer, particularly, like some of the ones we just heard the farmers reference. One type of nitrogen fertilizer has increased by 45 to 50% month on month. And what that means for farmers right now, as you mentioned in the spring planting season, a lot of farmers are faced with high prices. Some farmers, in fact, most farmers in the United States had already secured the fertilizer they needed for this planting season beforehand, but those who didn't, who needed to purchase fertilizer on global markets and were exposed to those high prices. When that happens, farmers have to make choices. They plant less crops, they apply less fertilizer, or they switch the crops that they plant. All of those have long-term effects.
Globally, what are the biggest risks if this disruption continues?
So biggest risks come in two categories. One is risks from high fertilizer prices. Those risks change depending on the time horizon of this war. The nature of the countries affected and how they're affected changes. When you look at the countries that were importers of the products that I mentioned, the final fertilizer products and the inputs to fertilizers, those include some of the world's major agricultural producers and exporters. So potentially many really important countries on ag markets could be affected. Alongside a lot of countries that are food insecure could also be affected. But the other category of impacts comes actually through a different channel, which is high energy prices. And it's actually through high energy prices that we're expecting to see high food prices in the short term in the U.S. and around the world.
If the Strait were to reopen tomorrow, how quickly could the supply recover?
Weeks to months, likely.
Really? Months?
Mainly because liquefied natural gas is one of the most important inputs to nitrogen fertilizer. And what we've seen are intentional attacks on LNG production facilities. So the duration of time it takes to get those facilities back online is going to affect how long it's going to take to get fertilizer prices back to normal.
There are comparisons to the 2022 disruption after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Is that a fair comparison?
Yes and no. It's a fair comparison in that major commodities are affected in both scenarios, and the timing was very, very similar, almost to the day. In the case of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, you had fertilizers and fuel and food exports affected. In the case of this war with Iran, you have fertilizers and fuel affected mainly. With Russia's invasion of Ukraine, because millions of tons of grains were effectively locked in Ukraine's ports immediately after the invasion, that's why you saw global food prices spike to a historic high within a matter of weeks. In this case, again, it will take some time to see the impacts of high fertilizer prices on agriculture markets and food prices, but in the near term, it's high energy prices that are driving food prices higher globally. We saw the first report of the UN Food and Agriculture Organization out just a few days ago, looking at prices in March. The price of all major ag commodities had increased.
Well, that was my next question for you. We talked about the impact on these farmers, but for regular consumers, I hear you say that we might not see the price increases for, what, a couple more weeks?
A couple more weeks. I'll be looking for the Consumer Price Index report from the U.S. Out in a matter of days. I'll be watching for subsequent reports from the UN Food and Agriculture Organization. The World Food Program of the UN expects that the impact of high energy prices alone will increase the number of people experiencing acute food insecurity by up to 45 million, depending on the duration of the war. And those impacts could spike within a few months. So it takes a few months for the impacts of high energy prices to bear out on high food prices. That's what we saw in the case of Russia and Ukraine as well.
Caitlin Welsh, thanks as always for your insights.
Thank you for having me.
The United States is the third largest consumer of fertilizer in the world, accounting for nearly 11% of global consumption in 2024. I didn't know that.
Support journalism you trust. Support PBS News. Donate now, or even better, start a monthly contribution today.
All right. So, speaking of farmers, what's happening in Utah is that we are in a drought. We're always in a drought. And we also see that Governor Cox refuses to engage in meaningful policy that will help preserve the Great Salt Lake and also conserve water for farmers. He has an alfalfa farm that uses a ton of water, an inordinate amount of water. He refuses to change the crop type. And this is just indicative of his corporate greed, how he's interested in making money, and he's interested in being a supplicant to his donors rather than, the people of Utah and how we're actually concerned about the Great Salt Lake, farmland, water. So I was curious about this. Drought relief offered as Utah farmers brace for one of the worst years on record, because we also aren't getting nearly as many snowstorms or rain. It is indicative of this larger issue of climate change and how there are refineries and corporate interests in Utah specifically that are running rampant, and they have very little regulations on what they can do. And so this means that pollution is very high, and that affects climate change. It accelerates it, and so we have less water.
It's close to this, but not this bad. This is the worst year.
And it's expected to be an unprecedented drought this year. Hello, I'm Fox 13 News anchor Amy Nay, right out in front of the state offices for the Department of Agriculture, where they're already talking about relief and help for our local farmers, who this year, more than ever, say they'll need it.
It's been a dry 20-year stretch.
But longtime Central Utah farmer Alan Dyring says this year he believes is the driest year they've had.
Right now, our reservoirs
Unfortunately,
are at
many
7%
people in
of
Utah
capacity. Right now.
Unfortunately, many people in Utah don't believe in climate change, and they just think that if you pray for rain, that it will happen. But I wouldn't be surprised if this gentleman fell into that category of acknowledging that there is a drought, but also not acknowledging that there is climate change affecting this, and also larger corporations that are making it worse.
We have 1,800 acre-feet of water in storage, and we usually have 23,000. They expect that the reservoirs will be emptied at a very minimal discharge. They'll be emptied by the 1st of June.
This is Sky Fox over the Gunnison Reservoir back in 2021 when it ran completely dry by the fall. Then in 2023.
It's so nice to see green
before
fields.
It gets
It's been a long
really
time
hot.
since everything has been green.
Dyring showed us the water coming down off the mountain, which was one of their better
Dyring
years.
is a very
Had anywhere
Utah
from
Mormon
16
last name.
to 30% of our normal flow.
But fast
The
forward 3
colonizers
years
of
later
Utah.
to 2026.
We normally are able to grow crops on 14,000 acres. We would be lucky this year to have crops on 5,000 acres.
Water is their lifeblood.
Kelly Pearson is the commissioner of the Utah Department of Agriculture.
We don't want to lose farms in Utah.
Expecting an emergency disaster declaration that will enable low-interest loans and other programs like grazing improvement and water optimization grants.
We got to try to bring hope back to them. I mean, this is going to be a tough year. No doubt about it. And we want to find ways to help them get through this year.
That's going to be a survival thing for them.
which you can see in these maps from the U.S. Drought Monitor website, how the Rocky Mountain states are seeing extreme conditions. And then in this close-up view of Utah, how in just the past week, those conditions have only worsened. The dark red showing exceptional drought.
I think this year we will deliver the least amount of water on record.
What he says may be an inconvenience for some, but for a farmer, it's their whole livelihood.
It cuts pretty deep into every aspect of the economy down here.
So we'll find ways to keep them afloat or to be able to find programs that help them.
And later this month, they are coming to many different towns all across the state, hoping to meet with farmers and find out about their needs and offer those resources. If you'd like to find out more online, just go to ag.utah.gov, where a number of different resources are available. Reporting in Taylorsville, Amy Nay, Fox 13 News, Utah.
What's probably going to happen, unfortunately, is that Governor Cox will follow the Trump playbook in creating a problem with this rampant corporate greed, not having a leash on these people and their endless pursuit of money at the expense of all of our health and safety and business, all of these things. And he will probably act like he's a savior of some sort, being like, oh, I support the farmers. I'm a farmer. I support them with water in these programs. It's like, you wouldn't have to do that if you were advocating for these regulations so that we don't have all of this rampant pollution. Okay. Now, let's get into some Voltaire. Changing pace a little bit. But I want to set the scene more for the book and then also draw some similarities to what we're experiencing now. This is in my book, The Communist Manifesto and Other Revolutionary Writings. So, there you go. Okay. This is from Dictionnaire philosophique in 1764. So this is providing a little introduction to Voltaire's life, and then it will get into the body of his work. Born François-Marie Aubry, Voltaire was the free-thinking philosopher, poet, playwright, and author of tales. Candide. Candide is satire. It's great satire. Who wittily skewered the repressive measures of the church and state in France and Europe. He challenged didactic religious beliefs and repeatedly called into question the literal truths of the Bible. Yep, that's what makes him so fierce. And the establishment did not like him for that reason. Which made him one of the most reviled and influential writers of intellectual and bourgeois France. Policy, which is what I'll be reading, is one of the hundreds of essays he composed for the Dictionnaire philosophique, a compendium first published in 1764, to which he continually added until his death. How to procure for himself subsistence and accommodation and protect himself from evil, he tells us, comprises the whole object and business of man. Voltaire has been made something of a scapegoat for the French Revolution's excesses of reason, but more reasonable people have continued to appreciate his sense, his wit, and his advocacy of religious and ideological tolerance. Certainly, the philosophe did not destroy the old social order, for it was disintegrating of itself, nor did they bring about the revolution, the roots of which lay deep in the preceding centuries. Yeah, a lot of oppression that led up to this. Writes Gaetano Salvemini. But in their writings, the future revolutionaries found not only moral justification for sweeping away the past, but the materials they needed in setting up a new society. It was through the works of the philosophe that they learned, rightly or wrongly, the causes of their troubles and a possibility of better things. All right, getting into policy. The policy of man consists, at first, in endeavoring to arrive at a state equal to that of animals, whom nature has furnished with food, clothing, and shelter. To attain this state is a matter of no little time and difficulty. How to procure for himself subsistence and accommodation and protect himself from evil comprises the whole object and business of man. This evil exists everywhere. The four elements of nature conspire to form it. The barrenness of one quarter part of the world, the numberless diseases to which we are subject, the multitude of strong and hostile animals by which we are surrounded, oblige us to be constantly on the alert in body and in mind to guard against the various forms of evil. No man, by his own individual care and exertion, can secure himself from evil. He requires assistance. Society, therefore, is as ancient as the world. The society consists sometimes of too many, and sometimes of too few. The vicissitudes of the world have often destroyed whole races of men and other animals in many countries, and have multiplied them in others. Yes. To enable a species to multiply, a tolerable climate and soil are necessary. And even with these advantages, men may be under the necessity of going unclothed, of suffering hunger, of being destitute of everything, and of perishing in misery. Men are not like beavers or bees or silkworms. They have no sure and infallible instinct which procures for them necessaries. Among 100 men, there is scarcely one that possesses genius, and among women, scarcely one among 500. Okay, I like that, where he's saying that... Oh, wait, no. He said among 100 men, there's scarcely one that possesses genius. Okay, so he's saying that men have more genius. I thought he was saying all of men, there's scarcely a genius. But, okay, so that's a sexist portrayal. It is only by means of genius that those arts are invented, which eventually furnish something of that accommodation which is the great object of all policy. To attempt these arts with success, the assistance of others is requisite. Hands to aid you, and minds sufficiently acute and unprejudiced to comprehend you, and sufficiently docile to obey you. Before, however, all this can be discovered and brought together, thousands of years roll on in ignorance and barbarism. Thousands of efforts for improvement terminate only in abortion. At length, the outlines of art are formed, but thousands of ages are still requisite to carry it to perfection. I mean, him using stuff like barbarism, that is colonizer language, specifically talking about people of color in lands that they are colonizing to extract wealth, so keep that in mind. As we were talking about the fall of the French Empire, how it is not always including everyone that was under the oppression of the French Empire. Foreign policy. When any one nation has become acquainted with metallurgy, it will certainly beat its neighbors and make slaves of them. You possess arrows and sabers, and were born in a climate that has rendered you robust. We are weak, and have only clubs and stones. You kill us, or if you permit us to live, it is that we may till your fields and build your houses. We sing some rustic ditty to dissipate your spleen or animate your languor. If we have any voice, or we blow on some pipes in order to obtain from you clothing and bread. If our wives and daughters are handsome, you appropriate them without scruple to yourselves. The young gentleman, your son, not only takes advantage of the established policy, but adds new discoveries to this growing art. His servants proceeded by his orders to emasculate my unfortunate boys, whom he then honors with the guardianship of his wives and mistresses. Such has been policy, the great art of making mankind contribute to individual advantage and enjoyment, and such is still policy throughout the largest portion of Asia. So again, he's kind of reinforcing these sexist tropes. Some nations, and also how the sexism is institutionalized, some nations, or rather hordes, having thus by superior strength and skill brought in, calling nations hordes, I'm assuming referring to indigenous people, having thus by superior strength and skill brought into subjection others, begin afterwards to fight with one another for the division of the spoil. Each petty nation maintains and pays soldiers. To encourage, and at the time to control these soldiers, each possesses its god, yes, using the control of religion, its oracles and prophecies. each maintains and pays its soothsayers and slaughtering priests. These soothsayers or augurs begin with prophesying in favor of the heads of the nation. They afterwards prophesy for themselves and obtain a share in the government. The most powerful and shrewd prevail at last over the others, after ages of carnage which excite our horror, and of impostures which excite our laughter. Such is the regular course and completion of policy. So again, him talking about the necessity for separation of church and state, calling out the corruption, how there is religious brainwashing and mind control that is implemented by political forces, and how these religious institutions then benefit from this monetarily and otherwise from the government. While these scenes of ravage and fraud are carried on in one portion of the globe, other nations, or rather clans, retire to mountain caverns or districts surrounded by inaccessible swamps, marshes, or some verdant and solitary spot in the midst of vast deserts of burning sand, or some peninsular and, consequently, easily protected territory, to secure themselves against the tyrants of the continent. At length, all become armed with nearly the same description of weapons, and blood flows from one extremity of the world to the other. Men, however, cannot forever go on killing one another. Well, we might be doing this. If history is telling us anything. And peace is consequently made, till either party thinks itself sufficiently strong to recommence the war. Exactly. Those who can write draw up these treaties of peace, and the chiefs of every nation, with a view more successfully to impose upon their enemies, invoke the gods to attest with what sincerity they bind themselves to the observance of these compacts. Yeah, again, religion being tied in. Oaths of the most solemn character are invented and employed, and one party engages in the name of the great Samanakadam. I have never seen this word before. Samankadam. What is that? Did I spell that right? Samanokadam. Whatever that means. What is Samanokadam? Oh, Buddha. Just a reminder that deity has been imaged as mother since long before Sanskrit or cuneiform or hieroglyphic or Hebrew or Greek or Chinese is spoken. What? Where is that even saying that's what it is? Okay, it's bringing up the works of Voltaire. Okay, so it means Buddha. I've never seen that. Oaths of the most solemn character are invented and employed, and one party engages in the name of the great Samanakadam, and the other in that of Jupiter the Avenger, to live forever in peace and amity, while in the same names of Samanakadam and Jupiter, they take the first opportunity of cutting one another's throats. In times of the greatest civilization and refinement, the lion of Aesop made a treaty with 3 animals who were his neighbors. The object was to divide the common spoil into 4 equal parts. The lion, for certain incontestable and satisfactory reasons, which he did not then deem it necessary to detail, but which he would always be ready to give in due time and place, first takes 3 parts of the 4 for himself, and then threatens instant strangulation to whoever shall dare to touch the 4th. This is the true sublime of policy. Being ironic there. The object here is to accumulate for our own country the greatest quantity of power, honor, and enjoyment possible. To attain these, so talking about like the goal, the object here by these nation states and the stakeholders, the people who support the nation states. To attain these in any extraordinary degree, much money is indispensable. In a democracy, it is very difficult to accomplish this object. Every citizen is your rival. A democracy can never subsist but in a small territory. Yeah, if we're talking about like true democracy. You may have wealth almost equal to your wishes through your own mercantile dealings, or transmitted in patrimony from your industrious and opulent grandfather. Your fortune will excite jealousy and envy, but will purchase little real cooperation and service. If an affluent family ever bears sway in a democracy, it is not for a long time. Yeah, an affluent family, he's essentially saying it's not engendering cooperation and service because it's addressing class and talking about how there is this condescension of affluent people, moneyed interests that are influencing democracy. But I guess we have to say an affluent family swaying democracy, I think, especially under capitalism, this has become less true that we have affluent families able to sway democracy. In an aristocracy, honors, pleasures, power, and money are more easily obtainable. Great discretion, however, is necessary. If abuse is flagrant, revolution will be the consequence. Yes. Yeah, that's why with the rampant abuse that is happening to the American people and the abuse on the globe at large with our tax dollars, it is leading to revolution. It is leading to uprising. Especially as we are going to feel the effects of the bullshit war going on. Thus, in a democracy, all the citizens are equal, ideally. This species of government is at present rare and appears to but little advantage, although it is in itself natural and wise. In aristocracy, inequality or superiority makes itself sensibly felt, but the less arrogant its demeanor, the more secure and successful will be its course. Yeah, the less they're flaunting their wealth, and the more tokens you have in positions of power, the more the masses are appeased. Monarchy remains to be mentioned. In this, all mankind are made for one individual. He accumulates all honors with which he chooses to decorate himself, tastes all pleasures to which he feels an inclination, and exercises a power absolutely without control. This is why we need to be talking about more of how Trump is acting like a king and a dictator. That is his aspiration. He's always wanted to be part of an aristocracy. He named his son fucking Baron. Hello? Okay. Provided, let it be remembered that he has plenty of money. He is deficient in that he will be unsuccessful at home as well as abroad, and will soon be left destitute of power, pleasures, honor, and perhaps even life. If only. While this personage has money, not only is he successful and happy himself, but his relations and principal servants are flourishing in full enjoyment also. And an immense multitude of hirelings labor for them the whole year round, in the vain hope that they shall themselves some time or other enjoy in their cottages the leisure and comfort which their sultans and pashas enjoy in their harems. Yeah, it's directly addressing the sort of brainwashing and subservience that happens with the masses in making them believe that if they work hard enough that they can gain this kind of privilege. Sound familiar? Observe, however, what will probably happen. A jolly, full-fed farmer was formerly in possession of a vast estate. As we're talking about farmers, I did this for a reason. I planned things for a reason. A jolly, full-fed farmer was formerly in possession of a vast estate consisting of fields, meadows, vineyards, orchards, and forests. 100 laborers worked for him, while he dined with his family, drank his wine, and went to sleep. His principal domestics, who plundered him, dined next, and ate up nearly everything. Then came the laborers, for whom there was left only a very meager and insufficient meal. They at first murmured, then openly complained, speedily lost all patience, and at last ate up the dinner prepared for their master and turned him out of his house. Yes, when the people rise up. The master said they were a set of scoundrels, a pack of undutiful and rebellious children who assaulted and abused their own father. I love that, because there is this idea of when the upper classes view lower classes rising up, they make it look like, oh, you're just being bratty children. You're just speaking out of turn. You're just being inappropriate, rather than looking at all of these actions as a way for providing people with human dignity. Astute content creator. I try. I try. Question mark. The master said, oh wait, I already read that. The laborers replied that they had only obeyed the sacred law of nature, which he had violated. Yes. The dispute was finally referred to a soothsayer in the neighborhood, who was thought to be actually inspired. The holy man takes the farm into his own hands and nearly famishes both the laborers and the master. Again, calling out churches. Till at length their feelings counteract their superstition, and the saint is, in the end, expelled in his turn. This is domestic policy. Yeah, so it's also, we can apply this to like corporate interest as well. But how we undo some of the brainwashing of religion, of capitalism, is sadly as people are suffering. And we are seeing that now very clearly with the masses starting to break away from Trump, and seeing how people really don't care about politics for the most part, situations that are happening in the world until it affects them personally. And that is a great example of that. There have been more examples than one of this description, and some consequences of this species of policy still subsist in all their strength. We may hope that in the course of 10 or 12,000 ages, when mankind has become more enlightened, I don't know if we've become more enlightened. I feel like humanity aspires to that, but we end up just repeating a lot of the same patterns because human nature is pretty awful. I know that's a cynical way of looking at it, but it's also kind of realistic. We may hope that I already read that. When mankind has become more enlightened, the great proprietors of estates, grown also more wise, will, on the other hand, treat their laborers rather better, and on the other, take care not to be duped by soothsayers, by people posturing to have answers, and who then use their status to enrich themselves and exploit people. So that's Voltaire on policy. Now, let's get into the reading. So we finished the first chapter, and I think I may only be able to get to part of the second chapter today. We'll see. Humans and their myopic nature. Exactly. Thanks for your support. Great minds. Yeah, the human race, we don't really inspire a lot of hope with the way that things are going, that things have been going. But, I mean, hopefully, as we're talking about revolution and people rising up and taking what the master has been denying them, as in that example, that there are more people who are willing to take action, especially direct action. So in the previous chapter, we were introduced to the crowds. They're described in dehumanizing terms because, again, this is aristocratic propaganda. And it is trying to make all of the masses look very cruel and evil, like they're laughing at the suffering of people, which, I mean, maybe that happened, but it is completely ignoring the fact that people were suffering, starving, not able to pay for things, being wrongfully imprisoned because they aren't able to pay for things. So more people need to read Nietzsche and Marx. I know. I think maybe for the next thing we read, maybe we'll read the Communist Manifesto. I think I may do that. What do you think? Okay, so the chapter ended with them talking about how the Scarlet Pimpernel, who is helping these aristocrats, whom they call aristos in shorthand, to escape from the guillotine. And there was a situation where there was like this old lady coming through and she's like, oh, my nephew has the plague or something like that. And the people left her alone, and it ended up being the Scarlet Pimpernel, and he was spiriting away some of these nobles. So he duped them again. Okay, this is chapter 2. Dover, the Fisherman's Rest. In the kitchen, Sally was extremely busy. Saucepans and frying pans were standing in rows on the gigantic hearth. The huge stock pot stood in a corner, and the jack turned with slow deliberation, and presented alternately to the glow every side of a noble sirloin of beef. Ooh, that sounds good. The two little kitchen maids bustled around, eager to help, hot and panting, with cotton sleeves well tucked up above the dimpled elbows, and giggling over some private jokes of their own, whenever Miss Sally's back was turned for a moment. And old Jemima, stolid in temper and solid in bulk, kept up a long and subdued grumble, while she stirred the stock-pot methodically over the fire. "What ho, Sally!" came in cheerful, if none too melodious accents from the coffee-room close by. "Lud bless my soul!" exclaimed Sally, with a good-humoured laugh. "What be they all wanting now, I wonder?" "Beer, of course," grumbled Jemima. "You don't expect Jimmy Pitkin to have done with the tankard, do ye?" "Mr. Airy, ye looked uncommon thirsty, too," simpered Martha. I guess these are the voices we're going for. We'll see if I remember them. I'm so down with that, like grounded. My feet have become one geostone flooring. I love that. Okay, we'll read the Communist Manifesto next. I think it's needed. All right. Simpered Martha, one of the little kitchen maids, and her beady black eyes twinkled as they met those of her companion, whereupon both started on a round of short and suppressed giggles. Sally looked cross for a moment, and thoughtfully rubbed her hands against her shapely hips. Her palms were itching evidently to come in contact with Martha's rosy cheeks, but inherent good humor prevailed, and with a pout and a shrug of the shoulders, she turned her attention to the fried potatoes. "What ho, Sally! Hey, Sally!" And a chorus of pewter mugs tapped with impatient hands against the oak tables of the coffee room accompanied the shouts for mine host's buxom daughter. Buxom. That usually means, like, curvy, but especially, like, busty. So, that's not a word we hear as much these days. Maybe I'll use it. Bring it back. "Sally!" shouted a more persistent voice. "Are you going to be all night with that there beer?" I do think my father might get the beer for them," muttered Sally, as Jemima, stolidly and without further comment, took a couple of foam-crowned jugs from the shelf, and began filling a number of pewter tankards with some of that home-brewed ale for which the Fisherman's Rest had been famous since the days of King Charles. "He knows how busy we are in here." Okay, so this is in England. I guess we could have guessed that with a lot of the names, but especially with like the accents that they're, how it's written, how it's forcing me to try to do an accent. talking about King Charles. Your father's too busy discussing politics with Mr. Empseed to worry hisself about you in the kitchen, grumbled Jemima under her breath. Sally had gone to the small mirror which hung in a corner of the kitchen and was hastily smoothing her hair and setting her frilled cap at its most becoming angle over her dark curls, when she took up the tankards by their handles, 3 in each strong brown hand, and laughing, grumbling, blushing, carried them through into the coffee room. There was certainly no sign of that bustle and activity which kept 4 women busy and hot in the glowing kitchen beyond. In the kitchen where they belong. Just kidding. Bro just said, yeah. I like buxom more. Yeah. The coffee room of the Fisherman's Rest is a showplace now at the beginning of the 20th century. At the end of the 18th, in the year of grace, 1792, it had not yet gained the notoriety and importance which 100 additional years and the craze of the age have since bestowed upon it. Okay, we have a footnote for 1792. The year of grace. This is an allusion to the new calendar that was created in 1793 and applied retroactively, beginning September 22nd, 1792. This new revolutionary calendar, used until 1805, symbolized a new order and a definitive break with the past. The calendar had 12 months, each 30 days long. 5 days devoted to national holidays were added to the year. The months were renamed according to the rhythm of nature. Vendemiaire, grape harvest, brumaire, fog, frimaire, sleet, nivos, snow, pluvios, rain, ventos, wind, germinal, germination, floreal, flowers, prairial, prairies, messidor, harvest, thermidor, warm and baths, and fructidor, fruits. Days of the week were renamed as well, and the week became 10 days long. The first year of the new era was named l'an 1, which is French for the year 1. Orsi's deliberate and repeated use of the old Gregorian calendar reinforces her rejection of the revolutionary ideology. Yeah. Which is lame. Yet it was an old place, even then, for the oak rafters and beams were already black with age, as were the paneled seats with their tall backs and the long polished tables between, on which innumerable pewter tankards had left fantastic patterns of many-sized rings. In the leaded window, high up, a row of pots of scarlet geraniums and blue larkspur gave the bright note of color against the dull background of the oak. That Mr. Jellyband, landlord of the Fisherman's Rest at Dover, was a prosperous man. I guess I could have figured out that it was in England because it said Dover, the Fisherman's Rest. Was a prosperous man was of course clear to the most casual observer. The pewter on the fine old dressers, the brass above the gigantic hearth, shone like silver and gold. The red-tiled floor was as brilliant as the scarlet geranium on the window-sill. This meant that his servants were good and plentiful, that the custom was constant, and of that order which necessitated the keeping up of the coffee-room to a high standard of elegance and order. As Sally came in, laughing through her frowns and displaying a row of dazzling white teeth, she was greeted with shouts and chorus of applause. "Why, Sally's here! What ho, Sally! Hurrah for pretty Sally!" "I thought you'd grown deaf in that kitchen of yours," muttered Jimmy Pitkin. Fuck Jimmy. As he passed the back of his hand across his very dry lips. All right, laughed Sally as she deposited the freshly filled tankards upon the tables. "Why, what a hurry, to be sure! And his grandmother a-dying, and you wantin' to see the poor soul afore she'm gone? I never seed such a mighty Russian." A chorus of good-humored laughter greeted this witticism, which gave the company there present accompany their present food for many jokes for some considerable time. Sally now seemed in less of a hurry to get back to her pots and pans. A young man with fair, curly hair and eager, bright blue eyes was engaging most of her attention, and the whole of her time, whilst broad witticisms anent Jimmy Pitkin's fictitious grandmother flew from mouth to mouth, mixed with heavy puffs of pungent tobacco smoke. Facing the hearth, his legs wide apart, a long clay pipe in his mouth, stood mine host himself, worthy Mr. Jellyband, landlord of the Fisherman's Rest, as his father had been before him, aye, and his grandfather and great-grandfather too, for that matter. Portly in build, jovial in countenance, and somewhat bald of pate, meaning like your head, that's what your pate is. Mr. Jellyband was indeed a typical rural John Bull of those days, the days when our prejudiced insularity was at its height, when to an Englishman, be he lord, yeoman, or peasant, the whole of the continent of Europe was a den of immorality, and the rest of the world an unexploited land of savages and cannibals. Oh, God. Yeah, the colonizer mentality of this is wild. There he stood, mine worthy host, firm and well set up on his limbs, smoking his long churchwarden, and caring nothing for nobody at home, and despising everybody abroad. He wore the typical scarlet waistcoat with shiny brass buttons, and the corduroy breeches, the grey worsted stockings, and smart buckled shoes that characterized every self-respecting innkeeper in Great Britain in these days. And while pretty, motherless Sally had need of 4 pairs of brown hands to do all the work that fell on her shapely shoulders, worthy Jellyband discussed the affairs of nations with his most privileged guests. So it does have a level of class consciousness, but it is against the lower classes. Just showing people in lower classes being useful, their brown hands that are exposed to the sun, or if they are people of color being used for their labor. The coffee room, indeed, lighted by 2 well-polished lamps which hung from the raftered ceiling, looked cheerful and cozy in the extreme. Through the dense clouds of tobacco smoke that hung about in every corner, the faces of Mr. Jellyband's customers appeared red and pleasant to look at, and on good terms with themselves, their host and all the world. From every side of the room, loud guffaws accompanied pleasant, if not highly intellectual, conversation, while Sally's repeated giggles testified to the good use of Mr. Harry Waite was making of the short time she seemed inclined to spare him. So I'm guessing the blonde guy that they're talking about is Harry Waite. They were mostly fisher folk who patronized Mr. Jellyband's coffee room, but fishermen are known to be very thirsty people. The salt which they breathe in when they are on the sea accounts for their parched throats when on shore. But the Fisherman's Rest was something more than a rendezvous for these humble folk. The London and Dover coach started from the hostel daily, and passengers who had come across the channel, and those who started for the grand tour, all became acquainted with Mr. Jellyband, his French wines, and his home-brewed ales. It was towards the close of September 1792, and the weather, which had been brilliant and hot throughout the month, had suddenly broken up. For 2 days, torrents of rain had deluged for the south of England, doing its level best to ruin what chances the apples and pears and late plums had of becoming really fine, self-respecting fruit. Even now it was beating against the leaded windows and tumbling down the chimney, making the cheerful wood fire sizzle in the hearth.
"Lord, did you ever see such a wet September, Mr. Jellyband?"
asked Mr. Hempseed. He sat in one of the seats inside the hearth, did Mr. Hempseed, for he was an authority and an important personage, not only at the Fisherman's Rest, where Mr. Jellyband always made a special selection of him as a foil for political arguments, but throughout the neighborhood, where his learning and notably his knowledge of the Scriptures was held in the most profound awe and respect. With one hand buried in the capacious pockets of his corduroys underneath his elaborately worked, well-worn smock, the other holding his long clay pipe, Mr. Hempseed sat there looking dejectedly across the room at the rivulets of moisture which trickled down the window panes.
"No," replied Mr. Jellyband sententiously. "I dunno, Mr. Hempseed, as I ever did, and I've been in these parts nigh on 60 years.
Aye, you wouldn't recollect the first 3 years of them 60, Mr. Jellyband, quietly interposed Mr. Hempseed. I dunno as I ever seed an infant take much note of the weather, leastways not in these parts, and I've lived ere nigh on 75 years, Mr. Jellyband.
The superiority of this wisdom was so incontestable that for the moment Mr. Jellyband was not ready with his usual flow of argument.
It do seem like more April than September, don't it?
Continued Mr. Hempseed dolefully, as a shower of raindrops fell with a sizzle upon the fire.
Aye, that it do,
assented the Worth host. I'm guessing that's a typo. Worthy host.
But then what can you expect, Mr. Hempseed? I says, with such a government as we've got.
Mr. Hempseed shook his head with an affinity of wisdom, tempered by deeply rooted mistrust of the British climate and the British government. That's healthy, I would say.
I don't expect nothing, Mr. Jellyband, he said. Poor folks like us is of no account up there in Lunnon. Yes, I knows that, and it's not often as I do complain, but when it comes to sich wet weather in September, and all me fruit a-rotten and a-dyin' like the guption mother first-born, and doing no more good than they did, poor dears, save to a lot of Jews, peddlers, and such.
That's blatantly anti-Semitic, just so we're clear.
With their oranges and such foreign ungodly fruit, which nobody'd buy if English apples and pears were nicely swelled, as the scriptures say.
That's quite right, Mr. Hempseed, retorted Jellyband. And as I says, what can you expect? There's all them Frenchy devils over the channel yonder a-murderin' their king and nobility, and Mr. Pitt and Mr. Fox, and Mr. Burke a-fightin' and a-wranglin' between them. If we Englishmen should low them to go on in their ungodly way.
Oh, if we allow them to go, like allow.
Let 'em murder, says Mr. Pitt. Stop 'em, says Mr. Burke.
Charles James Fox, this is a footnote, who served as Britain's foreign secretary and held many other posts, was an enthusiast of the French Revolution. After Fox met political defeat, his friend William Pitt was appointed Chancellor of the Exchequer. Exchequer? I don't know if I'm saying that right. Let me check. Exchequer. A royal or national treasury. Interesting. William Pitt. Hi, Tiny. Hi. Come here. William Pitt was appointed Chancellor of the Exchequer, and Fox took Pitt's acceptance of the post as a betrayal. The two remained cordial enemies thereafter. Pitt became Prime Minister at the age of 24. Of 24? Wow. That's very young. Come here. There you go. And he expelled the French ambassador from London after the execution of Louis XVI. Edmund Burke, who also quarreled with Fox, wrote Reflections on the Revolution in France in 1790. In this work, he interprets the revolution as a horrifying specter that defies the courage of humanity as an undertaking against nature. Probably an aristocrat. I mean, yeah. Yeah, it's... I don't know why I was thinking of a new person. It's talking about the same people. Classism. As an undertaking against nature, and as an uprising against an old regime that he compares to a wounded father. A wounded father, rather than an oppressor. I guess an abusive father. My dude has been shedding so much. How long does a winter coat even Oh, with one of the cats. I don't know. I mean, it does depend on the cat. So we have a long hair cat, Kit. He comes in sometimes, and Juniper doesn't shed as much as he does, him being long haired, but she has been shedding more as we're leaving winter. Yeah, it's the lint roller that's a savior of all of my clothes. Where did I leave off? Oh, there we go. Gamora must be like Juniper. Ghibli is like heavy shedding. Oh, okay. Yeah, Juniper is a Russian blue, or at least that's what people think she is when we adopted her, and she doesn't shed as much. On abusive father. Oh, I was talking about, because they were comparing like the French regime, like the monarchy, as what was it? As like an ailing father, a wounded father. And so I'm like, I don't think it's a wounded father. I would compare it to an abusive father to the masses.
And let 'em murder, says I, and be damned to 'em, said Mr. Hempseed emphatically, for he had but little liking for his friend Jellyband's political arguments, wherein he always got out of his depth, and had but little chance for displaying those pearls of wisdom which had earned for him so high a reputation in the neighborhood, and so many free tankards of ale at the Fisherman's Rest.
Okay, so this portrayal of someone who is for the revolution is trying to make him look dumb, that he doesn't actually know how to argue, he doesn't understand politics, that he's pretentious, and people who are against the revolution, like Jellyband, he's viewed as being like noble and speaking up for people. So, again, this is classist propaganda.
Let 'em murder, he repeated again, but don't let's have such rain in September, for that is again the law in the scriptures which says,
Lord Mr. Airy, how you made me jump!
It was unfortunate for Sally and her flirtation that this remark of hers should have occurred at the Oh, that was Sally.
Lord, Mr. Airy, how you made me jump!
It was unfortunate for Sally and her flirtation that this remark of hers should have occurred at the precise moment when Mr. Hempseed was collecting his breath in order to deliver himself of one of those scriptural utterances which had made him famous, for it brought down upon her pretty head the full flood of her father's wrath.
Now then, Sally, me girl, now then,
he cried, trying to force a frown upon his good-humored face.
Stop that fooling with them, young jackanapes, and get on with the work.
The work's getting on all right, father. But Mr. Jellyband was peremptory. He had other views for his buxom daughter, that again, his only child, who would in God's good time become the owner of the Fisherman's Rest, than to see her married to one of these young fellows who earned but a precarious livelihood with their net. Interesting that that's somewhat progressive, I guess. He wants her to be the owner, actually own property, which was not really a thing at this time.
Did you hear me speak, me girl?
He said in that quiet tone, which no one inside the inn dared to disobey.
Get on with Lord Tony's supper, for if it ain't the best we can do, and he not satisfied, see what you'll get, that's all.
Reluctantly, Sally obeyed.
As you expectin' special guests then tonight, Mr. Jellyband? Asked Jimmy Pitkin, in a loyal attempt to divert his host's attention from the circumstances connected with Sally's exit from the room.
I think I did a different voice for him. I don't remember. I guess that's his voice now.
Aye, that I be, replied Jellyband. My friends of my Lord Tony himself, dukes and duchesses from over the water yonder, whom the young lord and his friend, Sir Andrew Ffoulkes, and other young noblemen have helped out the clutches of them murdering devils.
but this was too much for Mr. Hempseed's querulous philosophy.
"Lud," he said, "what they do that for, I wonder? I don't hold not with interfering in other folks' ways, as the scriptures say."
Maybe, Mr. Hempseed, interrupted Jellyband with biting sarcasm, as you're a personal friend of Mr. Pitt, and as you says along with Mr. Fox, let a murder, says you.
"Pardon me, Mr. Jellyband," feebly protested Mr. Hempseed. "I dunno as I ever did."
But Mr. Jellyband had at last succeeded in getting upon his favorite hobby horse, and had no intention of dismounting in any hurry. "Or maybe you've made friends with some of them French chaps, who they do say have come over here o' purpose to make us Englishmen agree with their murderin' ways."
"I don't know what you mean, Mr. Jellyband," suggested Mr. Hempseed. All I know is,
loudly asserted mine host, that there was my friend Peppercorn, who owns the blue-faced boar, and as true and loyal an Englishman as you'd see in the land. And now look at him. He made friends with some of them frog-eaters, hobnobbed with them just as they was Englishmen, and not just a lot of immoral, God-forsaken, furrin spies. Well, and what happened? Peppercorn, he now ups and talks of revolutions and liberty. Well, good. And down with the aristocrats, just like Mr. Hempseed over here.
"Pardon me, Mr. Jellyband," again interposed Mr. Hempseed feebly. "I dunno as I ever did."
Mr. Jellyband had appealed to the company in general, who were listening awestruck and open-mouthed at the recital of Mr. Peppercorn's defalcations. At one table, 2 customers, gentlemen apparently by their clothes, had pushed aside their half-finished game of dominoes, and had been listening for some time, and evidently with much amusement, at Mr. Jellyband's international opinions. One of them now, with a quiet, sarcastic smile, still lurking round the corners of his mobile mouth, turned towards the center of the room, where Mr. Jellyband was standing. Okay, we still have quite a few pages to go. I think I'm going to stop there. Yeah. Where Mr. Jellyband is standing, and where he's waxing poetic, being supportive of the upper class. He's a class traitor. Not in a good way. Okay. Tomorrow is Band Book Club. We read chapters 15 and 16, I believe. Oh no, yes. I'm all over the place. Okay, we're reading chapters 16 and 17. Yeah. Yeah, we're reading chapters 16 and 17. The Giver. I love this book. And we'll discuss tomorrow. I'll also be going over... Thanks. I'll also be going over organizing techniques. So, just to help us feel a little more empowered with all the bullshit happening. But that's going to be it for me today. It was good chatting with you. Thank you for being here. I hope you have a good rest of your day, evening, and I will see you soon. Okay, bye.